Thank you, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening's council meeting for February 5th, 2024. First, I would like to call for a moment of reflection and Pledge of Allegiance from Councilmember Foray.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call. Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Foray.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Marriott.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the minutes for January 22nd, 2024. Are there any edits or corrections? Seeing none, those stand approved. We have no recognitions or presentations this evening, so I'll move us into public comment for this evening. And I believe we have quite a bit. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see so many faces. All right, so let's get to it. This is, just to give some quick guidelines, this is your opportunity to speak to us. We do not respond back. We do not answer questions. Please direct all your comments to the council and not at your fellow attendees. And if you require follow-up, we have your name, your information, we'll make notes, and our city team will be able to follow up with you directly. All right, thank you all. And first I will bring up Brent Riggs.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor and council members. My name is Brent Riggs. I'm a member of the local Arvada stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For several years, our organization has participated in meaningful service projects on behalf of the city and our community. Several others in attendance tonight, and I serve in our church's outreach committee, the purpose of which is to engage in community affairs through development of civic and faith-based relationships. We are pleased to see many of our partners here tonight and friends in attendance. Last year, our church received an invitation from Mr. Mormon to participate in an information gathering process to better understand the homeless issue in Arvada and to brainstorm possible solutions to help improve the current situation. We met several times and had productive conversations. A couple of weeks ago, Mr. Mormon invited the group back for an update. We were extremely encouraged by the discussion regarding the status of the Arvada Navigation Campus. We are asking that the council discuss in your upcoming strategic planning meeting the ways and means to complete the Navigation Center as soon as possible. The LDS Church has always taught and currently offers programs for our members in the community to promote self-reliance. Our understanding of the Navigation Center model is that it will utilize and implement many of the same principles to move the homeless population from despair to self-sufficiency. Our local leadership committee look forward to partnering in this process to bring the Navigation Center to fruition. Thank you for your time and efforts on our behalf.
Thank you so much. Next, I would like to invite up Heidi, forgive me, the handwriting. Flynn? That looks right. All right, please, Heidi. Okay.
Thank you. I, too, am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and was invited to speak and share on a personal aspect of my family in regard to, hopefully, a future navigation center for those experiencing homelessness. And I know there are a lot of reasons for people that experience that, but I'm here to address the one that has affected my family deeply. Homelessness as a result of addiction. Our son struggled with his dependence on heroin now for roughly 10 years, and as a youth, he was active in our church Young Men's program. He is an Eagle Scout and was a cellist in the Front Range Youth Symphony. He was a bright young man, a husband, and a father. As you can see, addiction doesn't discriminate. The horrors, fears, sorrow, and loss that our family experienced is intrinsic to active addiction. As a result, we had to learn new ways to cope and garner understanding of a crisis that we knew absolutely nothing about. It's certainly something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but it has taught me a lot. It changed how I see people in need. For me, personally, it strengthened my faith, brought countless tender mercies, and I learned the value of deep and abiding personal prayer. Through this experience, I came to know the most important thing I could pray or seek for my son was for the right people to meet him where he was on his path and provide him with opportunities to exercise better choices. After 10 years, that opportunity came. What I've discovered is that the answer we need almost always comes through the efforts of people who have a heart to administer to the needs of people like my son. Ignoring them simply isn't a solution. I will say, despite meaningful intentions by family and even punitive measures to push my son into a direction of recovery were made until, no strides were in any direction made toward recovery until my son was connected to services through his stay at an SOS camp in Denver. Hope came through those who served tirelessly to provide a safe place with structure and wraparound services that connected my son to real solutions toward recovery, much-needed mental health services, and reintegration into community living. Sabrina Benales and Quica Montoya have joined me tonight to share some comments as well. Both were instrumental in my son's breakthrough by virtue of their own relational experiences with addiction and their subsequent vocation in the recovery community as providers of those supports to those who need them. People in recovery are remarkable. This type of interconnection became instrumental in my son's ability to transition from the SOS camp to stable housing with ongoing support and resources that continues to encourage his recovery. And while nothing is a perfect solution, the distinctly different approach to the reasons he experienced homelessness was a game changer. I get that not all people are homeless for the same reason, but I think being treated civilly by members of the community goes far to help people maintain a strong sense of value and self-worth. Blind eyes and an ill or uninformed public only condemns those in need to feel pushed to the side as a fringe part of the community. Out of view doesn't mean they won't exist. It only makes it all the more tragic and sad as they struggle without hope or dignity alone. Tenets of my faith remind me that in many ways we are all impaired in some form or other.
Ma'am,
My son,
I'm so sorry, you're over time.
Okay.
Maybe about 10, 15 more seconds?
yes.
Thank you.
My son tormented himself for years trying to reconcile his existence on the streets with what he believed in his heart and what he'd been taught. He once told me there were many on the streets that he knew I would love by sheer virtue of their hearts, and I believe him. It's truly my hope that the proposal of a navigation center in Arvada that help can reach those suffering sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sabrina Benales.
Good evening. I'm Sabrina Benales. I started out here working at the SOS, which is a safe outdoor space, and then now I work for Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. But I'm not here representing either of those organizations. I'm here to talk about my personal experience. So, while not everybody has the experience that Heidi had, being with her son, we can't win them all. It's still, I feel it's important. We've got to have as many people out there. These people need respect. They need to be seen and to be heard. All of the people on the team that I work for Housing First and ACT Services, which is Assertive Community Treatment. So we deal with people who have co-occurring disorders, which is mental health issues and addiction. CCH, we also have, medical services, we have, therapy, we have clinicians on our team. So these wraparound services, they help us to keep people from falling through the cracks and we have such an influx of homeless people experiencing homelessness right now. I feel it's important also to have something in this area. So I have a lot of family in Arvada. I live in Wheat Ridge, right on the cusp, but they are forever calling me saying, I've got somebody here at the natural grocer, what do I tell her? And so I'm like, well, you could tell her she's got to go downtown. She's got to figure out how to get to Denver to get these resources. And I feel like if we had more resources out in this area, that it would be a big help, and it would help, get some of these people off of the, where they're camping and that. And it's, I've got people who are now working, people who are going through, they're all in different stages of recovery. They're getting the medications that they need, and that really makes a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have, forgive me if I mispronounce this, Coicatl? Oh.
Yeah, Montoya.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Hi, my name is Kwika Montoya. I live in Aurora, work in Denver, but as you can see, connection to communities are inextricably linked. As a member of your community, her son was a resident at Safe Outdoor Space, which is an alternative shelter for people experiencing homelessness. I didn't come into this work like I finished school and I'm like, I'm going to work in homelessness. I wound up finding purposeful work through my own journey of life challenges. My family broke up. My mental health declined. I lost my job. My house went into foreclosure. And through housing instability, I tumbled all the way into homelessness. I experienced homelessness on the streets I grew up on for 3 years. And my subsequent journey from recovery began with community connections. It began with a place for me to have shelter over my head. I was participating in a group program at the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and there I was able to heal, begin my journey of figuring out what I'm going to do with my life. I had acquired a couple felonies along the way, so I couldn't do real estate anymore, and began my journey of figuring out how I'm going to sustain and live a stable life. I found out about peer support, which is using your life challenges to help others recover from their own life challenges, which led me to the Denver Public Library at an innovative program supporting library customers experiencing life challenges, which led me to the current organization I work for, which is offering alternative shelter for folks experiencing homelessness. I think all of our communities are linked. And I think that we're in the middle of like multiple crises all at once of housing affordability, low economic mobility. We have a migrant crisis. We have homelessness, addiction, mental health support. So it's really important for city councilors, mayors, state legislatures, all to start focusing on doing more now because we're going to be overwhelmed with massive crises all coming together all at once. So I speak in support of navigation and Navigation Center here in Arvada, and also just any supportive services for folks experiencing life challenges because they're experiencing the most unimaginable crisis out in the open. They don't have four walls, so we see it. But they're no less human and no less need of communities to wrap their arms around them.
Thank you very much. All right, next I'd bring up Suzanne Sullivan.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Sullivan. I've lived in Arvada for 29 years. I love Arvada. I retired from Red Rocks Community College, where I coordinated the internship program. After retirement, I was a volunteer reading tutor in the elementary schools, and I was aware of children who lived in their cars with their parents. That was really shocking to me. I'd like to make just a few points. In 2023, Jeffco Schools reported that 1,637 students were experiencing homelessness. In 2023, the point-in-time survey showed a 73% increase in homelessness from 2022. And then the Arvada 2023 community survey, which we just received in our mail, showed homelessness and programming-based solutions is supported by the Arvada community. Several metro area cities are addressing homelessness. They've taken action. Lakewood has recently opened a navigation center. I would urge the City Council to make providing shelter and services for homelessness, for unhoused people, a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Linda Gertenbach. Did I get that right?
Thank you. Yes. I'm Linda Gertenbach, a retired clergy person in the United Methodist Church, now associated with Arvada United Methodist Church. And over the years of volunteering at agencies and churches providing shelter for those experiencing homelessness, I've heard many, many stories of what brought folks to their situations, ranging from, as we've heard, loss of job, catastrophic or chronic illness, domestic violence or destabilization of families, an increase in rent, and even in the breakdown of a car in one story that prevented this person from driving to his job. Whatever these final tipping points are, it's obvious that the lack of affordable housing makes managing and recovering from these life crises very difficult. As a result, there are hundreds of our brothers and sisters living unsheltered and unhoused on the streets in Jefferson County and Arvada. Members of Arvada United Methodist Church provide a nutritious meal for folks at the Rising, at the Dolores Project. We've been involved with the Ministry of Family Promise, Urban Peak, and the Neighborhood Meal. And several of these folks are here this evening to support us, and we thank them very much for their service. At the end of serving lunch at the Rising, we say goodbye to our guests at 1 o'clock when the shelter closes. But we do that with a heavy heart because we know we are sending them out to the elements, unsheltered and unhoused. We say stay safe and be warm, but those sound somewhat hollow when we know that that's probably not possible for them at times. Several of the folks at Mission Arvada have found affordable apartments. Over the years, we've heard stories from them about how difficult it is to transition from living on the streets to being in an apartment. They need a lot of support in the form of wraparound services to be successful. And now we come to the ask. I'm asking that this council be intentional about developing affordable housing, including 24/7 shelters, transitional supportive housing, permanent supportive housing, and any other types that might seem to be appropriate. I appreciate all the work that you have been doing so far and ask that you continue to make affordable housing a priority, partnering with nonprofits and communities. We need each other as we all engage in helping to provide a safe place to live for all in Arvada. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Robin Kupernick.
Hi, my name is Robin Kupernick, and I'm a longtime resident of Arvada, as well as a member of Arvada United Methodist Church. Our church, along with other faith communities and nonprofits, provides meals and support for the clients of the Rising. Thank you all for hearing my comments tonight and for the efforts that you have made to mitigate the increasing problem of homelessness in our city. We are all aware of the dramatic increase in the unhoused population in our town, not just a massive humanitarian crisis, but it hurts local businesses and it can make our community less safe. It also hurts every one of us when we hear about and we witness the suffering of our other Arvadans who are scared, hungry, and cold. No one is immune from this damage that's done when our fellow citizens, including our children, don't have a safe place to live. Because of available ARPA funding and a city council who now takes this problem seriously, I believe we have the opportunity today to solve this problem. I encourage City Council to continue and to deepen your efforts to build more low-income affordable housing units in Arvada. I understand that if the financing comes through, you all have been able to add up to 600 affordable units to our city to help solve this crisis. So thank you for this, and please keep it up. I also encourage City Council to build a permanent 24/7 supportive housing facility with wraparound services that permanently lift people out of homelessness. Right now, sometimes it seems a little like a Band-Aid, the solutions that we provide. An example is vouchers that Linda mentioned, when we can give a family a voucher for a stay in an apartment, but with no wraparound services. That doesn't really permanently solve that issue. So the long-term solution is to provide 24/7 housing in a safe place with on-site counseling, medical care, substance use treatment, landlord relations, employment services, etc. Imagine how proud we could be as a city to provide this integrated and sustainable solution that permanently lifts individuals and families into a safe and dignified way of life. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to throw out the Band-Aids and to make a real difference. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next is Mindy Moore.
Good evening. I'm also here to discuss my concerns for the unhoused in Arvada. As you know, losing a home can happen to anybody. As we heard at the recent Arvada Chamber Forum, there are many causes for homelessness, with the primary one being the cost of housing. Just a few years ago, I spoke to you about a number of Arvada seniors at risk of becoming homeless due to huge rent increases after the sale of their apartment building at 58th and Carr Street. Just over a year ago, City Council had a study session on homelessness, and the city team proposed a number of steps. The creation of a full navigation center was one of the goals that was proposed. Right now, our city depends on severe weather shelter, our faith community, nonprofits, our police and courts, and our city navigators to work with the unhoused in a somewhat patchwork manner. Recently, as you heard, Lakewood partnered with the nonprofit Recovery Works to create a true navigation campus on Colfax, day shelter and services, overnight shelter during extreme weather, planning to use their adjacent space for a 24/7 year-round shelter, and they recently purchased a motel on West Colfax and I-70 for bridge or transitional housing. We rely on providing motel vouchers to the most vulnerable, and we cannot sustainably rely on that. Yes, we have some new grant money, as will be discussed during tonight's housing workshop, but the number of nearby motels accepting those vouchers keeps decreasing. We rely on Housing Choice or Section 8 vouchers to put people into dispersed apartments across the city, but as you heard, often a chronically homeless person needs wraparound on-site case management to help them stay stably housed. And again, using our new grant dollars to do some of this case management across the city is great, and I'm glad Arvada got the grant, but again, it's another patchwork step. Regarding public costs, we heard that in 2020, our police force and court alone spent over $1 million of our city funds on homelessness work. These expenses could be offset by a full one-stop navigation campus, offering not only 24/7 shelter, but also transitional housing or more permanent supportive housing. How can you do that like Lakewood did? Well, Jefferson County had set aside $6 million in their American Rescue Plan funds to construct 2 navigation campuses, as you know, one in Lakewood and one in Arvada. It appears that Lakewood or Recovery Works does not need their share of that money, and those dollars must be obligated, which I've been told means be under contract by the end of this year. Please, this year, take advantage of those ARPA dollars for the development costs. If you partner with an experienced, larger nonprofit similar to Recovery Works, find a location near public transportation. They can help develop and run the campus, and they will have the ongoing fundraising expertise, the time, and the ability to apply for various grants, fundraising to offset the ongoing operational expenses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Amy Gearhart.
Good evening. My name is Amy Gerhardt, and I'm the lead pastor at Arvada United Methodist Church and a proud resident of Arvada. Arvada United Methodist Church was the first faith community established in this great community and is over 150 years old. And I am joined by so many of our parishioners to stand as a witness for the importance of a 24/7 full-service emergency shelter and navigation center for Arvada. Margaret Wheatley, who is a writer and professor and a social policy leader, says, "There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about." There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. A couple weeks ago at the Revived Church, over 150 folks gathered around a topic that they all care about. for different reasons, with different motivations, some as social workers, some as nonprofit leaders, some as business owners, some as faith leaders, some as folks who have been residents of this community and see the concerns and the hearts that they have for the homeless in our community. We are in a point of readiness to take this large step as a community. You can feel it in the conversations, in the investment, in the interest, in the real boots-on-the-ground work that has been put into this conversation by our Arvada Chamber of Commerce, as well as all of the nonprofits, social services, faith leaders, and others who have a real passion for this work. I, too, find myself in relationship with the homeless of our community through the ministries and services of our congregation. And I lament that we are a community that hasn't yet figured out how to make a faithful response, a meaningful response, a right response to this concern in our community. When we figure out what this community cares about, there is no greater power for change. I know, being a part of many congregations and many communities around this country, that Arvada has what it takes to make that kind of change. And the time is now, and I hope you'll help us do it.
Thank you. Bruce Morrison.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bruce Morrison. I've lived at 6521 West 69th Way for 35 years. I raised 2 children. They went to Swanson Elementary, North Arvada Middle School, Arvada High School. They've moved out of Arvada. Although they both have college degrees, they would have a difficult time moving back because of the soaring housing prices, which are at the root of some of these problems. I'd like to thank the council, Mayor Simpson, for not just for listening to us and hopefully acting on what we say, but for all the work you do for Arvada. It is appreciated. I am also here to testify in favor of a navigation center for the homeless with full wraparound services and 24/7 shelter. I see homeless as essentially a clash between sky-high housing costs and low wages. While we have seen a lot of luxury apartments built in Arvada in recent years, this has not helped the homeless because although increased supply sometimes lowers prices, increased supply of luxury apartments do not increase affordable housing. They just don't connect together. These big issues, it's hard for the city council and the city of Arvada to deal with those, but we can, and we do have money available, as many people have pointed out tonight, with the American Rescue Plan Act and other money from Jefferson County. We can provide services. We can have a navigation center and a 24/7 shelter with wraparound services, and I think we should do that. So I do really believe we can make a lot of progress on reducing homelessness in Arvada. It sounds like we have the resources to do it, so I'm hoping we have the political will, to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joyce Richardson.
This will be Pete and repeat here. Good evening, Mayor Simpson and the Arvada City Council members. I'm Joyce Richardson, and I live at 6521 West 69th Way in Arvada for 35 years. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the unhoused in Arvada. I'm very concerned that our city appears to be the least prepared and for a long time, the least inclined to dig deep into finding reasonable solutions for our unhoused in Arvada. Many people have fallen on hard times due to the COVID pandemic and the crazy increases in rent in Arvada and find themselves without stable housing. In fact, not just because of the cost of living in Arvada, our daughter left the state, and I'm sure that I'm not the only Arvada resident that's experiencing this loss. As a city, we have the opportunity to access ARPA funds to develop a navigation center and hopefully a 24/7 shelter. We live in a difficult climate, and we should be mindful of those among us who have little ability to cope with it. I feel Arvada has a unique opportunity to turn the difficult decisions made by many of our neighborhood schools into a win-win by working with Jeffco schools to maybe use or buy one of their buildings for a navigation center if there is no other suitable site, and a shelter with maybe the added bonus of some possible public use for a nominal fee. The meeting space in Arvada is not available really for organizations. I'm asking you as a council to undertake making a navigation center a reality, to offer assistance and a shelter for our most vulnerable residents. Thank you for all you do for Arvada.
Thank you. Andy Cawthorn.
Good evening. My name's Andy Cawthorn. I'm the missions pastor at the local church here in Arvada. It sounds like we're all pretty much on the same consensus with what is going on with the homeless population. And I can't stress enough about the emergency 24/7. This last year, I was given this position by our lead pastor, and I've never had such an eye-opening of what homelessness is until we started working with the severe weather shelter. A couple of my congregation have worked there the last couple of weeks, and it is about survival mode for these people. And unless they have something for a 24-hour shelter right now, they're not going to be able to survive. We actually had one gentleman come in where he had his soles were deeply red, gangrenous, and he had to have the ambulance called on, but he was still at 7 a.m. the next morning, asked to leave because that's what the rules are, and it was -4 degrees that day. 2 weeks ago, there was a woman who was screaming profanities at the shelter, and her hands were locked around her backpack, and her fingers were literally frozen because she was so cold. And what's going to help these people is to get them out of their survival mode, get them out of being scared and get them out of those things. And so what I want to encourage the council at their strategic meeting this weekend is to discuss a 24-hour emergency shelter for now. And then this navigation center is something that's going to be huge. And I want to let you know, it sounds like we have many different denominations in here of churches that are willing to help with that. And we are willing to help with that. We want to end this crisis. We want to get these people dignity. We want to get them homed. We want to get them warm. We want to get them fed. We want to empower them, not enable them. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis Kearns.
I'm Phyllis Kearns. I've lived in Arvada for 53 years. I'm here today to representing the Housing Interest Group of the Jeffco League of Women Voters. We have spent the past 6 years researching housing and the unhoused in Jefferson County as well as in Arvada. A number of our league members are also Arvada residents. The 2023 Jefferson County point in time count found 854 people experiencing homelessness, and of those, over half were unsheltered. In addition, half were first-time homeless. We know this count is low and also does not reflect the increasing number of evictions of our local residents this year. In addition, Jeffco Schools reported 1,637 homeless students in 2022, 56 of whom were unsheltered. Currently, Jeffco has 0 permanent shelter beds, with many of the homeless in the north part of Jeffco. At first, it looked like Arvada was in agreement with a plan to create 2 navigation centers in Jefferson County to provide shelter, a variety of services to help the unhoused, and transitional or supportive housing. The city announced plans to create a navigation center and purchase land, but this plan has not moved forward, although we do recognize the city is helping with the expansion of community table. Then a few months ago, Recovery Works in Lakewood received a $9 million grant to create a navigation center on West Colfax. We should examine how they were able to accomplish this and use their success as a template to help Arvada move forward. Our current Jeffco League of Women Voters position states that we support shelters and transitional housing in Jefferson County as emergency and short-term housing measures, with emphasis on assisting people to become self-sufficient. We really need a navigation center in the north part of Jefferson County, and we encourage Arvada to create a plan and move ahead to make that happen. The City of Arvada mission, vision, and values says that we are dedicated to delivering superior services to enhance the lives of everyone in our community. The unhoused are part of our community and worthy of our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill Christopher.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Bill Christopher. I first want to tell you I didn't vote for any of you because I live in Westminster. I'm sure I would have voted for all of you if I was a resident. But my wife and I are members of Arvada United Methodist Church and love the church dearly and the numerous outreach programs that the church does. We are active participants, thanks to Linda Gertenbach, who you heard speak earlier, serve a hot meal at the Rising twice a month. And we also participate in a food bank in the city of Westminster at the Presbyterian Church and historic part of Westminster. The reason I'm here tonight is to urge you, encourage you, if it would help, I'll beg for it, to move ahead on the Navigation Center and also various affordable housing opportunities that you have. And you know them far better than I would know them. There's no silver bullet to solve homelessness. We all know that. We also know that homeless is not unique to any one community. We certainly have our issues in Westminster, and I think you and Jefferson County have the opportunity to move ahead with the Navigation Center that has been on the planning books for some time now. And I would tell you that some of us in Westminster would be very envious of that opportunity. I'll just be real blunt. I don't see Adams County being near as progressive as Jefferson County. My career was in city management. I was city manager in Westminster for 23 years, a long time ago, but I still remain active and also write an op-ed column every week in a couple of local newspapers. So I have a chance to speak out on a variety of issues, and one of them has certainly been the lack of affordable housing. And the lady that spoke about most of the apartments that are being built are luxury. We have the same situation in Westminster. So I know it's difficult to do affordable housing. To me, that's more of a longer-term solution, but the quicker we can get it done, the better. But the Navigation Center, I think, is front and center of what needs to be done now and help get homeless people off the streets. So I urge you at your planning session to give this your full consideration and support, as certainly there is a growing need out there to help solve this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Judy Douglas.
Thank you. As a citizen of Arvada, I would just like, I didn't bring any facts or figures tonight because I know you've just been smothered with them, and I know you can get them at any time you want them. But I just wanted to give you my perception as a citizen of what I see happening in the area of housing and homelessness. When it comes to housing, I see affordable or workplace or attainable housing, whatever you want to call it. I see it being built in Arvada, and I'm so thankful for this. This is close to my heart. When my husband was in memory care, all of his caregivers were driving from Commerce City or Aurora. They're tired when they get there, practically. And so I think it's so important, and I'm so glad to see that affordable housing is happening so that the people who work in our community can live in our community. And I also was very happy when the council approved Family Promise of supportive housing. I think that's going to be a big asset if it comes to fruition. I hope it will. When it comes to the unhoused, I too, through my church, Jefferson Unitarian, serve lunch once a month, serve and cook lunch for the Rising. So it's given me a chance to really understand how complex this problem is. There is not one reason for people being homeless. It's just all over the place. And I also see the effect it has on the community. You know, we can't say that it isn't a problem. I've also seen the Rising come to the forefront. And they now make everybody who enters be registered. They have a database that everybody's entered to, the county database. They have a lot of services that a navigation center would have, like dental care, clothing, showers, things, the essential things that people need. But my perception looking at this is that the city has kind of said, well, thank you for what you do, but get out of town, get out of Old Town. And I can understand that. So the Navigation Center is the solution to that, but the Navigation Center, from what I've seen, it's just kind of not been happening for several years. There was property on Marshall that I don't know what's happened with that. Somebody told me there was property on Sheridan. I recently had a chance to talk to the director of the Navigation Center in Lakewood, and it kind of summed up to me that what's needed are people who understand and can do the funding. There needs to be a location, and there needs to be a nonprofit who can run it. So I think that it can be done, and I just, again, would like to plead with you to really try to make that happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Judy Denham.
Well, my name is Judith Denham. I've been listening to all of these comments and the comments that are going to come. We certainly have the resources, the enthusiasm, the goodwill, the public interest in housing, and particularly housing the homeless. So I want to congratulate council and staff for giving time and resources to addressing the many integrated problems of homelessness. Thank you so much, and to our total community. I'm very concerned with how we address the needs of the invisible homeless, the child who is one of the 1,600 plus JEFCO students who are homeless, and the invisible older residents of our city who don't have the stability of a home. As a former community table board member, I am so excited by the city's financial support of Community Table's expanded campus site and the expanded services to homeless families and individuals that Community Table will provide. That's a good first step, or a continuing step. And I'm here tonight to cheerlead for the Arvada Navigation Campus. It's a successful holistic model that provides wraparound services needed to lead individuals and families to stable housing situations. Let's use our extensive resources to put this campus together and start solving some of these social problems with more effectiveness, efficacy, and financial responsibility. I strongly urge you to keep the navigation campus as a significant part of your retreat strategic plan and move this project forward. I urge you to spend the resources to get this done as soon as possible. And if I had my high school pom-poms here, I would certainly say, go Navigation Center.
Judith, I think I speak for everyone. I would have loved to have seen that. Betty Ann Redson.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. I can only say that I am in support of all the comments that have been made, and I don't need to take up your time. And I'm here in support of the Navigation Center. But there is one point that kind of goes along with this that I would like to make, that I think we need to demonstrate for the children in this community that we care for everyone. I feel that we have tried to protect them from being exposed to homelessness. And what we really need to do is say, this happens, and we support you, and we support everyone. So I think it's an important lesson for our children, along with the support for everyone. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. David Meyer Anderson.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. So I am a 22-year resident of Arvada, and I'm also a real estate agent and have been involved in affordable housing for many years. So I want to give a quick, I don't want to, everybody's had great comments. I don't want to do a lot of repeating. I'm going to try to offer some things a little differently. One thing, I'll give you a real estate snapshot, which probably isn't going to be surprising to anybody, but I just did a quick search before I came tonight of like what is selling in Arvada and for how much. And the median single-family home in Arvada is selling for $650,000 right now. With current interest rates, even with a 20% down payment, the monthly payment for that is going to be about $46.25 a month. Right, yeah. And for first-time buyers who maybe have 5% down, they're looking at about $49.50 as a monthly payment. And to support that kind of payment, looking at minimum household income of about $150,000. So that's a median family income for a family of four, according to HUD in the Denver metro area, is $120,000. So we're definitely have an affordability crisis in Arvada for buying real estate. I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. Sadly, most of them are not able to afford to live in Arvada. We're looking at other communities. But anyway, I just want to give that quick snapshot of housing. One of my vocational experiences, I also have a master's degree in social work and worked at a phenomenal program in Denver for a few years called Warren Village. It's a transitional housing program for single-parent families. They can stay up to 2 years. They have to be enrolled in some kind of full-time activity, work, school, combination of both. And the transformation that I saw happen with these families was pretty amazing. But housing is the starting point. Housing is the foundation, affordable housing, to get people away from living in a survival capacity. So one other thing I would say, there's a lot of support tonight for these, a lot of voices here. There's also going to be a lot of NIMBY voices that will confront you as these plans probably become more concrete. And I just encourage you to stay courageous. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Harriet Hall.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm Harriet Hall. I live in Old Town in Arvada on Grandview Avenue, and I've lived here since the 80s, the 1980s. I know I'm not supposed to talk to the audience, but I just have to say that the number of people here to support this issue brought tears to my eyes, and it's making me very emotional right now, but I'll get past that. So my relevant experience to what we're talking about now is that I'm on the board of Community Table. I'm a grant writing volunteer at Mission Arvada, and I have over 30 years of previous experience running a community mental health organization that served this community. So I know a little bit about homelessness. The development of a navigation center to serve homeless individuals is an immediate issue for a variety of reasons that are too complex for me to summarize in 3 minutes, and you heard a lot of them. But let me explain a key one that I think has been alluded to but not totally explored so far tonight. The hope has been to develop 2 navigation campuses in Jefferson County to address the problem of homelessness in the county. Navigation campuses, as defined by the Jeffco Group Heading Home, include wraparound navigation services to help the unhoused, 24/7 year-round shelter beds, and more long-term transitional or permanent supportive housing. One such plan is currently funded in Lakewood, which you've heard about, and has had strong support both from the City of Lakewood and from Jefferson County. And it's my understanding that Jeffco has millions of dollars in ARPA funds set aside for a navigation center in northern Jeffco that must be obligated by 12/31/24, that's the end of this year, and spent by the end of 2026. So some suggestions related to the following. There are a number of organizations working on aspects of this issue. Mission Arvada, Community Table, Jefferson Center, Family Tree, Stride, the Severe Winter Shelter Network, One by One Helping Arvada Homeless, many more I haven't mentioned, plus many churches and individuals who you've heard about tonight volunteering their time and services and their money. All of these services need to continue, and they need to be part of a successful navigation center, but it will require the development of a needed infrastructure in addition to providing all necessary services. That is not something that any of these individual organizations singly, or that the City of Arvada by itself has the bandwidth to address on its own. But the city does have the bandwidth to serve as the convener of this effort, pulling all the organizations providing these services together by recognizing the importance of all the entities and supporting collaboration and either the identification of an organization that's willing and able to take the lead in developing such an entity or developing a new entity with the necessary resources and support to do so. I urge this to be a top priority at the upcoming City Council retreat. And thanks and kudos to you all for your support of Community Table and the affordable housing on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Fenimore.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff,
City Manager, Police Department, Community. My name is Jim Fenimore. I came to Arvada in 1959. I graduated from Fremont Elementary, Oberon Junior High, and also Arvada West. Back in the day, we rode horses, rode motorcycles, and chased birds, and played football out in the cornfield. It was a great time to grow up. Times have changed with a lot of crime. Colorado is now 58% higher in its crime, above the national average. It takes in also Arvada, crime has gone up. What my hopes to do is to come before council, work with the city administrator and the police chief to lower the crime in the city of Arvada and Jefferson County in the north area and the state of Colorado. I'm working with a retired fireman, and we've come up with a policy that could be activated within the police department, and it's called Posse. What Posse is to reduce crime. It is to educate daily the citizens in the community. It is to provide safety, to save lives for the police officers, the fire and emergency crews, and the public. So what I would like to bring forth to you guys is just to let you know that I will be following up with this with the city administrator, and if the budget's not provided properly right now for the police department, I would encourage the mayor and council to provide adequate funds so the police department can already do it. I imagine they've got a lot of things already in place, but I believe, we've got some things that we can bring forth and a system to provide them that would help them in assistance, because crime is not going to get any better. It's going to get worse, and we need to take care of ourselves and our community, and that's what I would like to present to you this evening. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Next, we have Scott Romano.
Break up the theme a little bit here. Good evening, council members. My name is Scott Romano. I've been lucky enough to call Old Town Arvada home for the last 2 years, although I've been a lifelong Jeffco resident. First, I want to thank you for taking the time. This has been awesome to hear about it, really all the issues that are going on. And I'll also just voice my support for this navigation center. It seems like an apt response to the issues going on right now. But secondly, I want to address a critical and time-sensitive matter about your implementation and strategic plan for the Old Town Arvada pedestrian mall. While in many aspects of your plan you propose specific changes to vehicle and pedestrian traffic, the future of 57th and Old Wadsworth remains to be determined. And the changes that recently happened to this crosswalk just last week seem misaligned with the vision for the neighborhood, putting pedestrians like myself in an unsafe environment. On January 30th, without notice and without signage, this crosswalk went from constantly flashing red, requiring all cars to stop, letting pedestrians cross freely, and it just changed. Now the light's green and the cars are zooming by on 57th, frankly really fast for a pedestrian mall to begin with, but also I almost made the mistake of stepping into traffic because we have these habitual pieces in our day-to-day lives. That's why we put big orange flags on new stop signs. So thank God I noticed, but I did almost walk myself right into traffic. So 2 requests. The first is please help keep this pedestrian friendly. Let's help these cars stop. They're just going way too fast past Old Wadsworth right now. And there are hundreds of us that walk across that road every single day, and these cars are going way too fast. But secondly is give us the courtesy of a heads up next time. Give us the equivalent of the orange flags on a new stop sign so that we don't make that mistake of accidentally walking ourselves right in. So thank you very much. I know you guys are planning the future of the pedestrian mall, hugely supportive of all the plans you guys have, really great. And just keep in mind this one crosswalk for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elaine Fitzgerald.
Well, this will be a change of pace. I too support what I've heard tonight about the navigation center. My name is Elaine Fitzgerald, and my husband Gerald Spann and I live at 6762 Kilmer Court. This is the view from my living room, and that land to the north of us is an old landfill, and there is a proposal out to put an RV storage lot on that land. When we bought this house back in '98, we were told that it was an old landfill and it would be too expensive to develop it. So we've been there for 26 years and very happy to be Arvada residents. I'm also grateful for the January 29th virtual workshop, which was presented by the council, as it gave me a better understanding of how council works through the process of development. On the slide that was titled "The History of Arvada's Comprehensive Plan," which was shown, could you blow up the 2014? It states that the current plan puts, quote, "new emphasis on integrating economic growth and neighborhood vitality with all transportation modes, streets, transit, commuter rail, bicycle, pedestrian, to complete and connect Arvada." Also in the LDC, there's a statement about residential neighborhood zoning, which says the purpose is to maintain the character of mature, established neighborhoods in locations where residents expect that the character be relatively stable and allow development, redevelopment, and/or public projects that are consistent with a neighborhood's architectural character. Since 1998, when we moved here, we have seen this area go from the boonies, as I saw it, to thriving neighborhoods with beautiful homes, restaurants, commerce, storyline church, wonderful outdoor trails that do enhance the vitality of our neighborhoods. For example, my husband Jerry is a Vietnam veteran. He can't go for long walks, but we can use his walker and we stroll over to the Colorado Tap House. We have lunch, we meet neighbors, and we enjoy the beauty of Ralston Trail. Therefore, I fail to see how an RV storage yard will meet the criteria of neighborhood vitality and stable character. Our concerns are many, such as fire safety, environmental issues of an old landfill, graffiti, vandalism, light and noise pollution, protection of wildlife, and the possibilities of home values dropping considerably. So you, as City Council, has the charge to represent us, the residents and visitors to this beautiful area of Ralston Creek. I ask you to consider that this project is not a reasonable choice for this area, that it does not meet the criteria stated in the comprehensive plan and the LDC, and to deny this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to the audience, I want to make it very clear on the RV storage, there has not been an application yet. So please still give your thoughts on any potential project, but I want it to be clear, there is nothing available yet that we could look at or vote on. So next we have Sharon McCarthy.
Hello, my name is Sharon McCarthy and I live in Forest Springs. As my neighbor Elaine provided one view of the area proposed RV center near Ralston Trail, my focus continues on the positive value of the trail for nearby neighbors and for hundreds of other neighbors who walk, bike, jog the trail every day. As I was driving home from a recent neighborhood meeting about the Kilmer Street landfill, I thought about what I heard at the meeting. A GL's neighbor discussed the effects of limited green space on residents in high-density communities. A neighbor from Westwoods described peaceful walks across the trail. A Forest Springs neighbor asked about potential negative impacts of the Colorado Tap House, a destination for all ages and stages. Their examples provide a stimulus for other small businesses to break ground, mom-and-pop stores, fronts, adding character and convenience along the trail. Two established and vibrant residential communities are adjacent to Ralston Creek Trail. GEOS is a forward-thinking community providing a model for environmental sustainability. Forest Springs is a unique suburban neighborhood with quaint charm and character of a small-town America. The trail benefits from a recent beautification of the area east of the golf course. We complained about losing the trees, and boy did we complain, and realized the city is doing its best to provide a viable substitute, a gathering place. Significant money was spent to address concerns about this area. And in the middle of these destination areas and communities, there could be an RV storage lot. The industrial business will have a negative impact on hundreds of neighbors using Ralston Creek Trail to unwind and relax. The project does not meet design criteria. It will be a blight to the area. It has the potential to hurt the momentum that this area is starting to see and feel. Close your eyes and imagine a mixed use for the landfill, featuring commercial opportunities such as the Colorado Tap House across the creek. Such a development reflects the 2014 comprehensive plan that Elaine mentioned, with an emphasis on integrating economic growth in vibrant communities. The redevelopment would be a bridge over a troubled landfill. At a recent council meeting and workshop, several members suggested thinking outside the box to deal with challenges. With careful planning, Ralston Creek Trail has potential to connect neighbors and communities. Neighbors can use the trail to exercise and recharge at no cost or to visit commercial destinations. Reuse of the landfill is a challenge, but it can be an opportunity for the city to develop a model to share with other communities confronting increased growth and limited green space. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Cullen.
Good evening. I'm Jim Cullen, and I'm here tonight to express my concerns regarding the proposed RV site and its impact on the safety of the nearby neighborhoods. My wife and I have lived in Forest Springs for 27 years, and we moved here to spend our retirement in a very special community. Forest Springs has the benefit of many of Arvada's gyms. Westwood's Golf Course is on the west side. Ralston Creek and the bike path are on the north side. Forest Springs Park and Westwood's police substation is on the east side. And it's a short walk along the bike path over to the Colorado Tap House. An RV storage is being proposed by a Florida developer on a site between two neighborhoods. It would be built on an unregulated former landfill site with a large amount of embedded highly flammable methane gas. Hundreds of RVs with hundreds of propane tanks of various sizes would be stored on the site. You may recall from the videos of the Marshall Fire the enormous explosions that were visible when propane tanks exploded as the homes burned. Hundreds of gas tanks on the RVs would add to the available fuel. The only separation between Forest Springs and the RV storage is a field of natural grasses. There's one entrance into the proposed sites, which would severely limit the Arvada Fire Department access if necessary. The February-March issue of the Arvada report has a lengthy article about wildfires and how they can easily turn into rapidly moving urban fires. Both the Marshall Fire and the Maui Fire were high wind events. The Marshall Fire was just a few miles north of Forest Springs. You may recall on the day of the Marshall Fire, a discount tire located on 64th and Ward Road collapsed due to the high winds. Also, evacuation from the path of the Marshall Fire was a major issue. If Forest Springs needed to be evacuated, many resources would be needed to get all the residents out of our two exits. Forest Springs is a primarily senior community, and many of the homeowners have limited mobility and or don't drive. The Arvada report article encourages individuals and neighborhoods to reduce the available fuel sources while the Arvada Fire Department works towards making the Arvada community less vulnerable to Marshall Fire-like events. If the proposal for the RV storage in our neighborhood, if it comes before the council, Please support the Arvada Fire Department and our community by not increasing the available fire fuel near our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Paul Phillips.
Hello. Thank you, Council and Mayor, for the chance to address you about this Forest Springs issue. It's not as important as the homelessness issue, but it is important to us. I would like to call your attention to this map. This map shows the Forest Springs community. This black line, if you can follow this black line, everything to the right of it is the industrial area. Everything to the left is residential. These are new apartment buildings. This is the golf course, and this is all Forest Springs Park right here. My issue is the inappropriateness of this, of putting a RV storage lot injected into a residential area. It's completely inappropriate, and it has no place. And when we have many visitors come to our house, and we point out this, we live right here, and our bedroom and living room look right onto this beautiful open area right here. And when we tell people that, they say, they want to do what? So this is my issue alone, is the total inappropriateness of a trailer park injected into this residential area. As I said, it's not important like homelessness, and I hope you would address the homelessness as a crucial issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Rick Sims.
Your Honor, can I just interject here really quick?
Yes.
I want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of this particular project. I think it's really important that council is able to hear from the public about this. And as you pointed out, Your Honor, accurately so, there's no application pending yet. So there's no problem with people coming up and making comment. But I just want to make sure our members of the public are aware that if this does come before council as part of a public hearing, that it is important that they submit their comments in writing beforehand or come back again to make testimony at that public hearing. So to the extent that anyone, I want to make sure there's no confusion on that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morris. Rick Sims.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's continue on with the RV storage area. So my name's Rick Sims, and I'm a resident of Forest Springs. And I think we've had a lot of people express the concerns about it. One of the things that I wanted to bring up was the ownership. So this piece of property was purchased by an LLC for $85,000. Basically, the LLC is the South Dakota Limited Liability Company. It limits the liability of the owners to the assets of the company. Furthermore, the LLC, Chelton, is owned by a Florida corporation. That provides an additional level of financial protection. So I'm a CPA, I'm not an engineer, but we understand from the engineers the storage area will have a living coverage. The average RV weighs around 10,000 pounds and can contain up to 80 gallons of gasoline. The current proposal calls for 357 spaces. So the total weight will be around 3.5 million pounds plus 28,000 gallons of gasoline. This will be on top of the living coverage with unknown stability because of all of the environmental issues and because it was used as a landfill. We asked an engineer when they were presenting this if the surface would need to be graded, and his response was inconclusive. But if regrading is required, they'd move the RVs out of the storage area. Well, I'd like to know where they're going to put 357 RVs in that area. It's not going to be at the Colorado Tap House, I'm sure. So we have a lot of environmental concerns about that, the dust. We also have concerns about an 85,000-pound fire truck going through the area. So there are many risk factors. The ownership has no ties to Arvada, our community, and to Colorado. They have limited liability and an unknown management team. The Ralston Creek Trail is a jewel for Arvada. Choosing to develop this land with a project that has so many potential pitfalls puts all of us at a financial and environmental risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ann Katzberg.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Simpson. My name is Ann Katzberg, and I live in the Geos neighborhood. I am an outlier here compared to everybody else in the community because I'm new. I just bought a home in June in the Geos neighborhood, and after hearing the testimony tonight of the community, I am so delighted to be part of this wonderful, compassionate group of people who have spoken about the homeless issue. And also, I'm very concerned about the RV park. But I'm here tonight to talk about why I moved to the Geos neighborhood. And some of you have visited me in my home and have seen it, and it's amazing in the aspect of the net zero, no carbon footprint that I've been able to establish since I moved here. I moved into the neighborhood because of the sustainability aspect. And I know that you're preparing to do a strategic plan, and I'd like to encourage you to develop a plan with the lens that includes an environmental aspect in terms of preserving our climate. So I have a couple of suggestions. Number one, I think that it would be great for you to update your sustainability policies with an appendix of the International Energy Code for a net zero environment. Number two, develop provisions focusing on what our city can do to ensure a healthy climate for our children. For example, before the Marshall Fire, which has been mentioned tonight, the town of Louisville wrote into policy that all new buildings must be electric. So the insurance companies that are requiring the rebuilding of all the homes must be all electric. They're requiring that. Number three, currently it's easier to build in Arvada a housing development that utilizes gas due to the current policies. So I encourage you to create incentives, both monetary as well as regulatory, to build homes without gas. I have a grandchild that lives in the Westwood neighborhood. I too love the parks, and I live along the Ralston Trail. I love the tap house and all the beauty that this town has. I'm impressed with the bike trails, and I'm so happy to be part of this community as a newer member. I know that climate crisis is one of the most pressing issues of our day, and I hope that when you develop your plan, that you will encourage a vision and establish a vision that creates a guarantee for a tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Darlon Cheng.
Hello, I'm Darlon Chang, and an Arvada resident at 6876 Juniper Court, and I'm here to speak as the new lead of the environment team of the Arvadans for Progressive Action, or APA. My first request of APA was to consider renaming the environment team to the Climate Action Team, since names matter, and the organizations with the word environment in their names over the last 4 decades have not been successful in reducing annual carbon emissions. Additionally, the percentage of global energy generated from polluting fossil fuels for the last 4 decades has been stuck at about 80%, with any growth in renewable energy capacity matched by growth in fossil fuel production. The best climate science warns that global carbon emissions must be cut in half by 2030 to avert the worst outcomes of the climate crisis, which means famine and extreme weather events that could make getting home and business insurance against wildfires and flooding unaffordable. The members of APA know that without a livable climate compatible with civilization, no other progressive causes matter. At the same time, sufficient climate action won't be possible this decade without universal health care that allows oil and gas workers to transition into clean energy jobs, clean energy unions to ensure worker rights and living wages, affordable housing that is free from fossil fuel infrastructure and high energy bills, and free education for all to learn the skills needed to transition to clean energy in our lives and our work. I'm not a climate scientist, but I earned a PhD in mechanical engineering and spent the last 20 years of my life working on energy transition, first as an ExxonMobil research engineer, and now as president of a small business focused on clean energy retrofits for homes and buildings. Based on that experience, I believe that market forces over the last 2 decades have not been up to the historic task of clean energy mobilization. And civilization scale peacetime mobilization guided by democratic leadership is necessary in this pivotal decade. I ask you to consider what this City Council should do to ensure that Arvada is a leader in the clean energy transition, and turn those considerations into action in the city's strategic plan, such as banning gas and requiring net zero building and new developments like the Geos neighborhood, where the first 28 homes are built net zero and all electric, but the next 91 homes are locked into gas, with the decision on gas or all electric for the remaining 110 homes still up in the air. Another action to consider for the city's strategic plan is to phase out gas in existing homes and buildings in line with the state's goals. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. And now Kathleen Flynn.
Mayor Simpson, members of council, I'm Kathleen Flynn. I live at 8472 Robb Circle. Thank you for taking my remarks tonight. I am a climate activist, and I have grave concerns about our changing climate, both locally and worldwide. I have contacted the city numerous times regarding the burning of wood and chimneys throughout Arvada. It puts dangerous particulates in the air. And I recommended that the city partner with Xcel Energy to see if they would give a discount for people transferring into gas fireplaces, which isn't much better, but at least it keeps the particulates out. However, I'm speaking tonight about fossil fuels, which is definitely the primary cause of poor air quality. I want to remind council that the continuing urban sprawl that Arvada is allowing contributes to poor air too. People who choose to live in Candelas and who might live in the newly acquired property west of Highway 93 will be commuting somewhere to work, to shop, and to recreate. I doubt that the city or the developer has arranged to have RTD provide public transportation out there. I doubt that the charging stations for electric vehicles will be built along with the development. Such development also causes soil depletion and displacement of wildlife. I urge you to deliberate cautiously before you approve building permits and consider our fragile climate. And since I have a minute left, I'm going to change topics. And I will be addressing this at future meetings, but I would like for Arvada to follow the example of city councils in other cities and adopt a resolution to end the destruction of Palestine. Please do what you can to change the perception in Congress that the United States should support Israel. I find it ironic that we support Ukraine against the aggression of Russia, and yet we support Israel, who is the aggressor against Palestine. I will assist you in writing a formal resolution if you agree to do so. I think the more cities who take this approach, the more effect we can have on the United States Congress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is all I had who signed up this evening. Do I have anyone else in chambers who would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, Ms. Rush, I believe we have some on Zoom.
Is on.
Ms. Malone.
Hi, my name is Pat Malone. Thank you for listening to my comments. Almost everything that I plan to say has been said multiple times, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of the statistics that we've heard in relation to the plan for navigation campuses. One thing though, hearing about the students, over 1,600 students experiencing homelessness just makes me gasp. I can't even fathom how these kids come through that experience and as fully functional citizens. So I'll cut my 5 paragraphs down to 2. It's my opinion that our city leadership has a responsibility beyond roads and utilities and public safety. I believe we now have a council that recognizes a responsibility to make Arvada a safe home for all its residents, including those who aren't thriving, but who just might be able to thrive with the right sort of support. I'm asking the city leaders, look at the Lakewood Navigation Campus that we've heard about, look at their model, and like them, partner with a strong nonprofit. We've heard from so many of those tonight who are willing to participate, be a part of the solution to lead toward a successful navigation campus in Arvada. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much. Do we have? That's all on Zoom? All right, with that, I will close the public comment portion of our meeting this evening. Thank you all so much for coming. You don't have to leave. We will actually be discussing affordable housing on the agenda later if you'd like to stay, but I understand you all have homes and families as well, so if you would like to go ahead and make an escape, I will give you the opportunity to now. Yeah, oh, we're gonna. All right. Those of you who are sticking around, thank you. We don't always get people who stay. So first we have our consent agenda this evening, and we have 2 items on the consent agenda. The first item is R24-015, a resolution authorizing an agreement by and between the City of Arvada and APC Construction Company for 2024 Phase 1 Pavement Resurfacing Program, project number 24-ST-01C, in an amount not to exceed $3.9 million. And second on the consent agenda, we have R24-016, a resolution revising and reestablishing the Arvada Park Advisory Committee. Councilmember Foray.
I'll make the motion.
Please do.
All right, I move R24-015 and R24-016 be approved.
Council will cast their votes. All right, all votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next, we have 1 resolution on this evening's agenda. It is R24-017, a resolution authorizing Amendment Number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Arvada and the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority to complete landscape improvements on Ralston Road to Yukon Street to Garrison Street, City Project Number 18-ST-40. And I believe this will be presented by Jenny Wolfslang.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The bond funding for the widening of Ralston Road, Yukon Street to Garrison Street does not include the design and construction of streetscape improvements. Therefore, in 2019, team members from Engineering and Parks collaborated with the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority board members to incorporate streetscape elements into the project through an intergovernmental agreement. These improvements will be beneficial to the City of Arvada, Aura, and the community as a whole by bridging the gap between Ralston Central Park and Old Town, enhancing pedestrian functionality of the corridor, and creating community connectivity. Currently, this work is ongoing. However, delays to the project completion This agreement needs to be extended to use the allotted streetscape funds. The Arvada team recommends that City Council approve R24-017, a resolution authorizing Amendment Number 1 to the IGA between the City of Arvada and Aura to complete landscape improvements on Ralston Road, Yukon Street to Garrison Street, City Project Number 18 ST40.
Thank you. Councilmember Ferre, press your light.
If anyone wants to make the motion, no? All right, I'll take it.
All right.
All right, I moved R2024-017, a resolution authorizing amendment number 1 to an intergovernmental agreement by and between the City of Arvada and the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority to complete landscape improvements on Ralston Road, Yukon Street to Garrison Street, City Project Number 18-ST-40 be approved.
All right. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next, we have first reading. Ordinances for Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that CB 24-002, an ordinance retitling, repealing, and reenacting Division 2, expungement of juvenile justice records of Article 4, record of Chapter 58, Municipal Court of the Arvada City Code, be approved on first reading, ordered published in full, and public hearing set for March 4th, 2024 at 6:15 p.m.
Thank you. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you very much. It stands approved. All right, next we have an appointment to the Arvada Park Advisory Committee. Open to anyone who wants it. You know what? Councilmember Pfeiffer.
I move to appoint Eric Berger to the Park Advisory Committee for a full term ending April 30th, 2027.
All votes are cast. That is passes 7-0. Thank you very much, and congratulations to Mr. Berger. All right, next we're going to open up to 2 workshops, but quickly I would like to give everyone a short break. Well, do we expect workshops to go longer than about 20 minutes? Yes, we do. All right. Then I'm going to call a short break before we move into workshops so that we have a chance to stretch our legs, everybody. Thank you. All right. I will invite everyone to return to their seats, and we will get back underway here in a few seconds. All right. Thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to be opening up the workshops presentation of this evening. To start, we have our affordable housing updates. I will invite Ms. Carrie Espinoza and Sam Bradley up, and Ms. Jessica Garner.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'm back, and I've got a new team. So this is another division within Community and Economic Development. I did have somewhat of a preamble prepared, and then after listening to all the folks that came in here, I think the issue is dynamic. There's a lot going on, so the timing on this was really excellent. So we appreciate the opportunity to come up and just give you really what we think is like the 101 of what our housing division is doing, the funding, where things are going, some things that are on the horizon, and also to answer some of the questions that have come up. I did want to note that in our agenda, we do, I'm sorry, that's very small, we do have a call out on section 115 funds. That's incorrect. We know that that's 1115, and that's actually a program through Medicare, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that too. But we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Carrie Espinosa. I'm the housing manager. So Jessica previewed the agenda. So we're going to start off by reviewing the housing team's current grants and services that we currently offer. From there, we'll move into the Housing Advisory Committee, an update on the strategic plan, and then provide an update regarding the affordable housing development that we've been working on. So talking about our current grants and services, the first is the Community Development Block Grant. This is a federal grant that is provided to communities with the intention to support locally led initiatives, including housing suitable living environments and the expansion of economic opportunities for low and moderate income persons. This is a program that is administered by the Arvada Housing Division, and the grant amount that we typically receive is about $425,000. This grant is primarily used for the Essential Home Repairs Program and the Human Services Grant Program. And in 2023, for the Essential Home Repairs Program, the city spent approximately $193,000 using CDBG to complete 14 home repair projects in the community. And we also used $75,000 of CDBG that was contributed to the Human Services funding pool. Continuing with our services and assistance, as you are aware, the city received a $1.9 million grant from DOLA. It's the DOLA Transformational Homeless Grant. And the purpose of that grant is to support homeless initiatives, including but not limited to street outreach, emergency shelter, and bridge housing. Right now, the city team is meeting with the DOLA staff to learn of the reporting requirements that are required for this grant, as well as drafting policies and procedures. So we hope to be rolling out RFPs and so forth to get those services going here in the near future. We also offer homeless and housing navigation services. The housing division employs one homeless navigator that supports regional homeless efforts, OSS, street outreach, and resource navigation. And the housing division employs one housing navigator that identifies permanent housing options for people experiencing homelessness or housing stability and guides them through the leasing and move-in process. In 2023, the navigators were able to find permanent housing for 24 households experiencing homelessness. And we also offer Energy Outreach Colorado. This is a service that not too many people know that we offer through the housing division. But this program offers low-income Arvada residents with payments with their energy bills. And in 2022 through 2023, we were able to serve 201 households for a total of $186,000 in grant assistance through that service.
Carrie, I have a quick question for you. Within your housing division, it appears that CDBG provides some of the overhead for it. Is that also where the cost of having a homeless navigator and a housing navigator come from, or does that come from somewhere
We have been using CDBG coronavirus funding to pay for the housing navigator salary. That funding has been expended, and now we're moving into the new DOLA grant to cover that salary.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question while we're pausing? On the DOLA homeless grant, that 1.9 million, have we allocated all that funding already to different uses, or are we still in the planning phase?
It's broken down per activity, so there are certain amounts tied to street outreach, another amount allocated to emergency shelter, and another amount allocated to bridge housing. We have not identified partners as of yet for those initiatives, and we haven't developed the policies and procedures, so that's where we're at this time.
Okay, thank you.
You may continue.
And then the next grant is the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and this program is administered by the Arvada Housing Authority. We have a total of 562 permanent vouchers. We have approximately a $7 million budget, and the purpose of this grant is to provide rental subsidies to extremely low income and very low income households. This program makes rent affordable because the voucher holder pays approximately 30% of their income as rent to the landlord. And the nice thing about this program is that the assistance is tied to the tenant. So if that tenant elects to move elsewhere, they can take that voucher with them and use it at their next residence. One thing that we have expanded into just starting in late 2023, early 2024, is the use of our vouchers for project basing, meaning that the assistance is tied to a housing unit rather than the resident themselves. And we're doing this with the Vance Street Flats project currently. We did designate 7 of our vouchers to be used at Vance Street Flats. They're in the process of leasing those units right now. I believe people will be moving in this week, so we're extremely excited about that. And so we just wanted to point that out, that this is a new endeavor of ours, but we're very excited because it allows the developer to charge the housing authority a higher rent portion to bring in more revenue for that property, but it still provides housing opportunities to very low-income households.
Carrie, before you leave this slide, can I ask you another quick question?
Sure.
In the first part, the housing choice vouchers, do all those have to be used in Arvada?
No. No.
And of the 562 vouchers we give out, how many of those are used in other communities?
We have an IGA with Foothills Regional Housing, which is the Jefferson County Housing Authority, which allows us to use our vouchers anywhere in Jefferson County with the exception of Lakewood. And the reason we can't go into Lakewood is because we don't have an IGA with Metro West Housing Solutions. So our folks are scattered about. I don't have a breakdown of the numbers. I would say the majority are here in Arvada, but we do have a fair number, particularly in Wheat Ridge. We have tenants who live there. If you'd like a breakdown of those numbers, I can provide that at a later point.
Do you have just a rough idea? Is it 25% of them are outside of Arvada, or 30%, or 35%? Or
I would guess
5%,
35%.
35%, so a third or so.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But again, that's a guess.
Councilmember Ambrose.
To follow up on that question, does that mean that if in Jefferson County they got a voucher somewhere else not in Arvada, but they moved into Arvada with it, they could?
Yes. Yes. So the Jefferson folks who do receive a voucher from the Jefferson County Housing Authority can use that voucher in Arvada per that IGA. And I also should probably mention too that if a voucher holder wants to leave Arvada, wants to leave Jefferson County, these vouchers are portable. They're portable nationwide. So we do have people who opt to move closer to family, and that may be out of state, and we are able to transfer the voucher. So that is a perk of this assistance, is it stays with that resident.
And the funding does come from the county as well, or where does the
The
funding
funding comes from HUD.
Okay.
It's federal funding.
So it's federal funding that we distribute to people in Arvada who then can move around Jefferson County, but they can also move nationally because the funding's coming from a national source.
That's correct.
Okay.
Carrie, let me ask you one other follow-up question. When it makes sense that someone who has a voucher who's here in Arvada, we can administer that. You know, they're relatively close by, and even Wheat Ridge and maybe even Jefferson County. But when someone receives a voucher, is that a lifetime voucher that they have that for life no matter what, or are there restrictions put on that?
The restriction is that they have to continue to be income eligible. And so every year we require, it's a federal requirement that we review income guidelines. Those reviews per recent legislation that was passed, those reviews will take place every 3 years now. But as long as they have a portion of rent to pay when we calculate that 30% of their income, as long as we're contributing a portion of that, they're not responsible for the full rent, they can keep the voucher.
And so we're reviewing their eligibility every third year?
Correct.
And do we just ask for a tax return or something? How are we reviewing their eligibility every third year?
It depends on the source. So about 15 years ago, maybe closer to 20 years ago now, HUD implemented a partnership with Social Security Administration and other federal departments, allowing us to access income records for folks. It's called the Enterprise Income Verification System. So we run a report on those individuals that are up for their housing renewal, and it will tell us on there what their Social Security amounts are. It tells us wage information. So oftentimes we can use that report itself to calculate what their income is or to verify their income. If there's questions regarding that income source, or if it's a source of income that is not available per that report, then we do ask the tenant to provide that verification.
I guess I'm just thinking, when someone inherits money, for instance, there's no Social Security implication there. There's no Social Security withheld, and a Social Security report wouldn't change a thing. Or someone whose living situation changes. If you were to get married, for instance, to somebody else, and you still don't work, and you're providing your income information, you're still not earning any income, but the household might be different.
Sure, and they are required to report those changes to us. That is a requirement of the program.
And they do that how? They have to fill out a form every third year? I guess that's what I was getting at. They have to respond every third year with the information you want?
They do, and and forgive me, I'm not the most knowledgeable about these new requirements, but there are times that would trigger them to report that information to us early outside of that 3-year period.
Okay. Two last questions. How many of the people graduate out? In other words, they get a voucher because they're struggling with their income and they stay here or they move somewhere else or whatever, but they get education, they get a better job, they change their living situation, any number of things that cause them to be economically more successful than they were. How many of them give up their voucher because they kind of graduate from the program?
Again, this is an estimated guess, but I would say about 10 per year. We have about 3 households leave the program every month. It's not necessarily due to graduation. Some people pass away. It's for a variety of reasons. For someone to then no longer need the voucher because their income has increased, I would say 10 to 15 a year.
Do that. And then you almost answered the second question I was going to ask, which is how many vouchers out of this 562 change hands every year? How many of them come back to be then given to somebody else?
It's about 3 a month. Now, as that attrition happens, we're not always able to offer the voucher to the next person on the wait list, unfortunately.
Why
and
is
it
that?
depends on our budget from HUD. There are years where our budget is prorated, and right now with the Biden administration, we're doing very well with our funding. But in prior years, closer to 2013, I would say we were receiving about 70% of what we were receiving before. It was very low. So in those cases where our budget is prorated, we can't continue to serve at the high level that we do. It just depends on HUD.
Okay. And as Arvada's grown, has the amount of dollars, vouchers, whichever metric you want to use, has that changed as our population has grown, or has it changed because of inflation or any other factors?
No, and I asked HUD this question because our population has grown significantly and our voucher count has not. And I was told that at this time they cannot offer us vouchers to mirror our population growth. But we have increased our vouchers through the new special programs that HUD is offering. The mainstream vouchers is the big one that we were able to, where we received 39, or actually it's 49 now, additional vouchers through these special programs. And so that's going to be our action at this point, is any time that those special vouchers present themselves, we need to take a close look at going after them.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Yeah, about the wait list, how many people are on the wait list for a voucher?
Right now, we have just under 200. That is low. We opened up our wait list in October of 2021, so we had close to 1,000 people submit applications during that period. We're now down to about 200. Prior to that, I believe we opened up our wait list in 2015 and we received 4,500 applications at that time. So it's, we were surprised to see the 900, but we had only opened the wait list for one day. And so that's why we received a lower amount.
And so of those 200, are they from the initial 2021 or is it from?
They're from 2021.
So people have been waiting for 3 years for a voucher from this housing program?
Yes, and that is happening nationwide with this program.
And are those 200 folks Arvadans?
Not necessarily, no. When people apply, anyone in the nation can apply for our wait list.
To any city municipality?
Yes.
So they might be somebody from somewhere else who wants to move closer to family in Arvada or something like that?
That's correct.
Okay. And what are you using to decide the vouchers that are going to be project-based? Is that like additional funding to have new project-based, or is it 20% of the 562 can be moved to project-based housing vouchers?
20% of the existing 562 can be project-based. So it's not additional funding, it's not additional vouchers. We're taking from our existing allocation.
Okay, so the voucher funding all comes from the federal government.
Correct.
And the staffing funding also comes from the federal government to administer this program.
That's correct. For each voucher that we lease, we receive an administrative fee for that.
Okay, so this doesn't cost any Arvada taxpayers anything to do. But if somebody in Arvada were to come upon hard times, they could apply to this program if there was expanded funding and an open wait list.
That's correct. The key, you just hit the key points there. We have to have an open wait list. We open it and we close it because we cannot manage the thousands of applications that we would receive. We don't have the staffing to do that. So yes, if we had additional funding and the wait list was open, we could do that.
And it's not any city policy or governance that determines who or who doesn't get a voucher and how long they have it or their qualifications or anything. That's all federal-based funding requirements.
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more lights. Thank you.
So moving on to Proposition 123. This is an initiative that the city opted into in 2023, in July of 2023. And so by opting into Prop 123, our commitment to this is that we committed to increasing our baseline by 417 units of affordable housing by December 31st of 2026. And we are on a good pace right now to meet that target. As you know, the 72 units of legacy senior residences, they recently closed at the end of December, so we were excited to see that. Projected in 2024, there will be 85 units for the Marshall Street Landing or the Family Tree Project. And we are also in conversation with the Marshall Point developers, and they are wanting to build 260 units of affordable housing in Arvada. And if all those projects go through, that's exactly 417, which is our baseline. So we're extremely excited about that, and our fingers crossed that all those projects move forward. Also, as part of our commitment to Prop 123, we did commit to develop a 90-day approval process for the development projects. And with that, we're still waiting guidance from DOLA. We don't quite know what the requirements are for that 90-day approval process, so more to come on that. And through Prop 123, the programs that are available, and again, we're waiting on more specifics from CHAFA and DOLA, but on the CHAFA side of Prop 123, there's the land banking opportunity, the subordinate or concessionary debt programs, and the tenant equity vehicle. On the DOLA side of Prop 123, there's the opportunity to apply for affordable home ownership programs, homeless and eviction prevention programs, and planning grants.
Councilmember Ferre.
I feel like people assume there's going to be questions from me. Sorry, ahead of time. For Proposition 123, I know we looked at gap funding as an issue with the Habitat for Humanity build, so I just wanted to see if we could use some of the Prop 123 funding with the Habitat build.
It's possible for Habitat to apply for the gap funding for Prop 123. I think it would be more appropriate for Habitat to apply since they're the developer. And this, we would not want to take out a loan for this particular project, but certainly Habitat could.
Okay, and then for land banking, have we as a city looked at parcels of land that we could land bank using this money already, or is that in the works?
It is, and Sam's been talking to multiple developers on possible options there, so certainly more to come. We're also, this Prop 123 is still very new, and CHAFA and DOLA are still, this program will evolve over time, and so we're still, again, waiting for, I think they just announced actually the first round of awards for the land banking opportunities. So I think there will be some lessons learned from there, but certainly we're keeping our eyes open and having those conversations.
The next question I have is around our eviction programs, what we have currently and what we could use to expand with Prop 123 funding. I know that the pastor that was here talked about a story of being evicted just from becoming homeless because of something wrong with their car, something wrong with their home that gets them out. So I'm just wondering what we're doing in that regard.
Sure. So prior to Prop 123, when we were looking at the DOLA funds for through the Transformational Homelessness Grant Program, eviction prevention was one of the eligible activities through that grant. And we had conversations with Jefferson County because we really wanted to position ourselves where the cities were not competing against one another for these funds. How could we complement and work together towards each of the cities and the county being able to be awarded? Jefferson County stepped up and they were very interested in eviction prevention. And so we, in order to support their application, we did not pursue it. And they are currently offering an eviction prevention program through the county, and it's through a partnership with Family Tree and the Action Center. And so people who are facing eviction prevention can contact those two organizations to learn more about eligibility criteria for their particular situation. In addition to that, Jefferson County also goes to the courthouse, I believe on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and they have staff members there. And as they find residents who are facing eviction, they can meet with the Jefferson County staff. They'll review the program eligibility requirements and try to pair them up with these resources. So before we consider going after Prop 123, I'd like to talk more with the county to see what their future plans are for their program, just so that we're not potentially duplicating any services.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Marriott.
Hey, a question about this slide. What happens if the Marshall Point folks don't qualify for their LIHTC funding this time around and we don't make that 417 units in the deadline?
So we have 3 years to meet it, so we could look at other possible developments. If we don't meet it, it just means that the city cannot apply for Prop 123 for 1 year.
Okay. We're not really in charge of that, right? Those are developers who bring forth, they secure land, they secure financing, they bring forth a proposal. The city doesn't develop housing, it's just it's here or it's not.
Right, and that's a good point. We're not in the development business, so we are reliant on the developers to bring ideas to us, and they do. They may just, it's very conceptual, but they want to see what incentives we offer here at the city. That's usually the first question that they're asking us is, what can you offer us? We're interested. And we just start down that path of having those conversations. It might be to try and identify parcels of land or development incentives. Those are all conversations that we have, but you're absolutely correct. We are reliant on the developer to reach out to us to have those conversations.
Right. So we don't have any way of making sure we make that goal or not. It either happens or doesn't, and it's whatever it is whatever it is.
Correct. If we're not in the development business, then no.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam Bradley.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? I'm Sam Bradley. I'm the Affordable Housing Development Specialist here at the city. We don't have a development department, but I do help the city navigate some of the development deals with affordable housing developers who are interested in partnering with the city and bringing affordable housing to the city. So one of my responsibilities is overseeing the Housing Advisory Committee, who I will refer to as the HAC. They were established in May of 2023, and they meet for 90-minute quarterly meetings. So last year we had 3 meetings and 1 special meeting where we took a tour of the Abbey at Old Town. And the top priority of the HAC has been established as the writing of the strategic plan. So when you look at their bylaws, there are numerous responsibilities that the HAC is tasked with, but we've really decided to hone in on the strategic plan, primarily because of time constraints. The plan, as you will see in some later slides, is slated to be written and approved, hopefully by you guys, by the end of June. So we're just really firmly going gung-ho on that. But we did actually establish a new responsibility that is a little bit outside the bylaws. We are trying to establish the Arvada Affordable Housing Fund. As Carrie mentioned, we do not have a development arm within the city. So one of the ways we can encourage development is by offering incentive. And it's pretty simple. It's like if you offer cookies, they're gonna come, right? So this is something that we can offer developers is some gap financing, which we, again, will go into later. But we really wanted to involve the HAC on this initiative, so we worked extensively with them to help establish what our priority criteria for these subordinate loans are going to be and what our threshold criteria is going to be. And this criteria is going to be updated every year at the Q4 meeting for the next fiscal year's funding cycle. And I'm gonna, is it this way? There we go. All right. So now I'm going to get into the housing strategic plan. What is the background? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? So the purpose of the plan is simple. The city is looking for some evidence-based strategies for how we can bring affordable housing to Arvada in the most effective way. And again, writing this has been identified as a top priority for the HAC. So what do we want this plan to be? I would like to see specific goals, steps, timing, benchmarking, so that the city can really use this plan to inform taking very concrete steps towards developing affordable housing and addressing some of the outstanding issues. The city was awarded a grant to hire Root Policy and have them do this update to a 2020 assessment, which they also performed. So we're updating that assessment. And then we're using the new assessment to write the strategic plan. So we do have some upcoming milestones for you guys. On March 25th, we're going to be doing a city council workshop discussing what the updates of the data has yielded, what insights can be provided, and some of the strategies we are thinking about writing into the plan. And then in May of 2024, we are hoping to present the final plan to you so that we can get it approved on So just to show you some of the progress we have made, we are actually making phenomenal progress on the updates of our assessment and the creation of our strategic plan. The data is tiny, so I hope you guys have it in front of you so you can see it. But we have that black line denotes where we are so far. So we have already actually received the first draft of the review. I've gone through it. We're waiting for comments back from the consultant, and then we're going to have the second draft. And then after the city team has reviewed the second draft, we're actually going to be giving it to the HAC to review in advance of their Q1 meeting. So if you notice, the Q1 meeting is at the very end of Q1. That was deliberate. It was to give the city team and the consultant a chance to write the plan so that we can give the HAC a complete plan, which then they can provide commentary on at the Q1 meeting. Because after that, we only have one more HAC meeting until we have to give it to you guys. All right, so now we're going to go into our affordable housing update, and I'm going to start with some definitions just for clarity, and this is going to be really important for the workshop and throwing this around. And Councilwoman Frey, if you'll bear with me, because you have seen this before. So in my opinion, I think affordable housing falls into two distinct groups. So the first group is what I like to call income-restricted housing. This is housing where the payment is defined by the resident's income. It's not defined by the market. So we have the total housing payment, which if you're a renter is your rent plus utilities, and if you're a homeowner is your mortgage plus utilities, is not more than 30% of the resident's income. So within that bucket, we've got traditional affordable housing, we've got workforce housing, and we've got affordable homeownership programs. So I'm going to take you through each one of these. So I'm going to start with workforce and affordable homeownership. So workforce housing is affordable housing, but it's kind of for a higher income bracket. So we're looking at 80 to up to 140% AMI. And different states, different counties, different municipalities, some will say it's 100%, some will say it's 120%, but really the upper thresholds that I've seen is about 140%. It is income restricted, but because it serves that higher bracket, it can't use the low-income housing tax credit. So you have to be a little more creative in the funding, but fortunately, because it is serving people of a higher income and it's generating higher rents, you can actually leverage more private debt against it. Then we have affordable homeownership, and I kind of want to caveat this. So the golden target is actually 80 or sub 80, but really in practice, sub 80 means 79.5% because it's just really hard to make the numbers work for AMI income brackets below that 80% mark. It's just tough. And there are some programs, I think Prop 123, they define it as up to 100% AMI, and I've seen it as high as 120% AMI. So the golden standard is 80, but it can go up depending on what funding source you're using and what program you're talking about. And again, that is your mortgage payment, so your principal plus your interest payment, and your taxes and utilities, everything that's sort of like a must pay for your housing costs. That's what we consider a total housing payment. All right, now we go into the affordable housing category. So traditional affordable housing is 60 to 80% AMI or below. And I say up to 80% because in some cases you can do some income mixing. So your average is 60% or lower for the entire development, but some individuals in the development can actually be up to 80. But after 80, it's a complete cutoff. There's nothing else. For the renters, their rent is capped at 30%. Their total housing payment is capped. And there's no additional subsidy for them. They don't get a voucher. They don't get any of that good stuff. And they do have to pay their rent. In this category, we have senior affordable housing, which has an age limit restriction. You can do 55 or you can do 62. Or you have just general affordable housing. Most people will just call this affordable housing, where there's no age restrictions on the resident. And then, Carrie touched on this briefly, we have project-based voucher housing. So in practice, this is usually for the 30% AMI and under folks, but you can actually go up to about 50% AMI for project-based voucher units in an affordable housing development. And you will receive a rental supplement that will bring your rent up to, it's the 30% that you pay, and it's going to bring you all the way up to 100% of fair market rent, which is a metric that's determined yearly by HUD. So within that category is permanent supportive housing. So that's traditionally, that's almost always less than 30%. These are people who really need those extensive services, those wraparound services we were talking about earlier. A lot of times you may require case management, or in a case of senior housing, you may require, some on-site medical or visiting nurses, something along those lines. Or you can have voucher units that are just used to enhance the rental income generated by the property, which is actually really good because affordable housing does not cash flow very well. So anything that you can do to help the project become independently financially self-sustaining is just a really good tool. So those are our income restricted definitions. Now we have our no restriction definitions. So the first is a word that has become really popular in the vernacular. It's called attainable housing. So attainable housing doesn't really have an official definition because it's not really tied to any sort of federally regulated funding source. But what most developers mean when they say attainable housing is the total housing payment is kind of expected to fall within a range that it is accessible to households earning about 80 to 20% or 120% AMI, but it's not limited, right? It's not limited to their housing payment, and somebody making 125% AMI may decide that they're comfortable spending 40% on their total housing payment. And this is due to a variety of factors, the type of house it is. Sometimes you think duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, that kind of soft density, that missing middle is really popular with the attainable housing model. But unlike affordable housing, it is actually based on market, and it is not based on the individual's income. So you can end up paying a total housing payment that's more, and you could also have a higher income household come in and decide that I don't want to spend X, I'd really rather spend 20% of my income. So it is open to them. And then on the other side is what we call naturally occurring affordable housing, and these are market rate units that cannot command a rental or total housing payment that's high enough to exceed the reach of people making 60 to 80% AMI. And this could be for, again, a lot of reasons. Some of it could be the age, the size. Amenities are really popular right now in buildings. Maybe it's an older building that doesn't have a lot of the more robust amenities. It may be due to where it's located in the neighborhood and the neighborhood amenities that are available. But it is tenuous because if the owner of the building decides to do a gut renovation, it may end up falling out of this category. Or if market conditions just change, it could fall out of this category. So these two are, just think of them as not protected by income. Their affordability isn't really protected, whereas the other ones they are. All right, so let's go a little bit more. So some exciting news, our affordable housing development pipeline. So these are the projects that we have that are currently either under construction or in pre-development. And it's pretty exciting. We've got, the biggest news, I think, is that Legacy Senior Residence is closed. So that's gonna add 72 new units of affordable senior rental property. And then I want to, sort of bring your attention down to the Marshall Points apartment. We are hoping that CHAFA will fund them. The developer has been had some conversations, and we're really hoping that we can get the private activity bonds to move forward with this project. We are also Marshall Street Landing. As far as we have heard, they are funded and just are finishing up some items in their permitting process, and hopefully should be pulling permits soon. And Habitat for Humanity, I know everyone is very excited about this project. The best I can say is, we're talking to them. We have calls, we have check-ins. They still have a significant financing gap. We are trying to work with them to see what money is out there that we can go for and how we can help them bring this project to closing. So just I think this map is fun. So this is sort of where everything is located. It's kind of scattered, but it is mostly in the eastern part of Arvada, eastern or central. And then let's continue. All right, so some more exciting news. One of the things that we're able to offer our developer partners is a special limited partnership, which under Colorado state law means that if a government entity partners with an affordable housing developer, they can be exempt from taxes, which they like very much. So the Arvada Housing Authority, which is sort of structured as the housing division within the city, has an affiliate called Arvada Housing Partner, and we are jumping in as the special limited partner in numerous projects. So we do charge a fee for our participation, and this fee is much less than if they had to pay taxes. So again, they like it very much, and we also can structure the fee so that the project can make it to closing, and then they can pay back the fee or pay portions of the fee in places where it makes sense for the project financially. So in 2023, we negotiated SLP fees for 3 projects. Sheridan Ridge and Willow Green went through restructuring, so we had to completely redo our SLP agreement. So they opted to do a payment of $150,000 for each property. And then Legacy Senior Residences, which just closed, will be paying a $125,000 fee, which we're going to be collecting over the course of their construction period. And I know these numbers sound high, but I will say it is very, very advantageous when you consider the alternative, which would be just paying the taxes.
Let me stop you there while you're on that slide.
Sure.
Councilmember Marriott, I apologize. Councilmember Foray had her light on first. You'll be next.
Beat you to it.
Sure.
No, I'm just kidding. Just one question of where the fees are going, where that money's going.
On the next slide.
All right.
All right. Now, Councilmember Marriott, all yours.
Okay. So the question I have for you is, you said it's less than the property taxes would be. How much
Yes.
less? Do you get 50% at least?
Not quite 50%, and it's also structured differently. So if you want to go into finance for a little bit, if you're paying the taxes on an annual basis, it's going to be factored into your operating costs, right? So that's going to lower your total NOI, your net operating income. The banks who are extending the construction loan and then eventually the permanent loan for these projects are looking at that NOI number. So by removing the tax dollars from the operating expenses of the project, they're able to leverage significantly more debt. So depending on the interest rate and depending on the terms they were able to get, even a reduction of, say, $50,000 a year could end up yielding an extra $500,000 in additional permanent debt. So are we collecting all of it? No, certainly not. We are trying to collect what we can in a way that doesn't kill the project. And I can guarantee you, I go through these pro formas with a fine-tooth comb, and I try to make sure that we are collecting what we can so that we can fund our affordable housing fund, which I will explain on the next slide. But we don't want to kill the deals. So a lot of times these fees are going to come in as cash flow charges. They may come in as a prepayment, and if they do a prepayment, I'll give them a discount rate. And it just depends. And then at the expiration of the SLP agreement, and they all have expirations, we all come back to the table, we renegotiate for the next set of years if they want to do a prepayment structure. If they don't want to do a prepayment structure, then they just continue to give us annual payments. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to design a payment structure that is going to benefit the project, allow them to leverage additional private debt, so not our money, just I don't want to disrupt the financial integrity of the project long term. So that's really what our goals are. And the percentage is going to depend on the project, honestly.
Okay. So it sounds like that's really just an accounting maneuver, though, whether they pay it as a prepayment or something by some other name. There's really no difference.
I can guarantee you that it is, in total, it is definitely less.
Okay, and so that was what I was
Yeah.
kind of trying to get
Yeah.
at. If you take the names out and take the accounting maneuver to give them borrowing headroom, how much of a discount are they getting off of the property taxes they would pay otherwise?
It depends on the project, honestly.
Okay, so give me a range from kind of the lowest one to the highest one.
I would say probably at the low end, they're paying about 20%, and maybe at the high end, 65 to 70%.
Okay. So, seems too good to be true. It's just like money out of thin air. Who actually pays that? Obviously, there's a subsidy there. The property taxes that aren't being paid, or the part that's not being transferred to us as a payment in lieu of property taxes, there's a chunk there. And that's got to be costing somebody something. So who is that? Who's the one providing the subsidy? Where?
I mean, I think it just comes out of the general budget, so the surrounding area pays it.
So the individuals that live in the community that the things are done in.
Well, I mean, would come out of the city's budget, it would come out of the county's budget, it would come out of the state budget. That's the budget it would come out of.
Okay, so there's kind of a hidden subsidy in there. So let me ask you, I'll let you go ahead and finish, and I didn't get a question in fast enough on one of your previous slides, so we'll go back after you get done, and I have another question on one of your other slides.
Sure, happy to. All right. So where does the money go? So we have created the Arvada Affordable Housing Fund. So this goes back to developer incentives. What can we do to get a developer to come and develop in Arvada? As I'm sure you guys have heard, times are tight, interest rates are high. Everyone is looking for something, whether it be straight up grants, they want vouchers, they want waivers, they want land donations. If it is something that exists, the developer has thought of it and has asked for it. So something that we have done to sort of control for this influx is we had scattered in like 15 different accounts, or maybe, I don't know, somewhere around 15 accounts, about $3 million from old housing-related grants and initiatives. So this is not taxpayer funds. They initially came from, federal or state grants that just don't exist anymore. And they were always in such small amounts that you couldn't really do anything with them. So what we decided to do was pool them together and create a funding source that developers could tap into. So we have already loaned out $840,000 to Legacy Senior Residents, and we have $850,000 softly committed to Marshall Point. So obviously they have to close their fund again, make it to closing before they can get the money, and this is actually, if their schedule is correct, this will be at construction completion that they're actually going to take the money out. So we have some time. So we have some current revenue sources. The SLP funds that I mentioned earlier, that all goes back into this fund. The interest and principal payments from the loans that we are doling out. But I will be honest, we definitely need to explore some other funding sources. Other municipalities do have funds that are similar to this, and they fund them in a variety of creative ways, which we can sort of get into at a later date. But there's funding sources out there, and other towns have figured out ways to replenish this a little bit faster. But our goal here is for this to be a self-sustaining fund. So we never want it to run completely dry, and so which is why the SLP fees are so important, and why I go through their performance with a fine-tooth comb, is because I want to make sure that every dollar that we can get from these projects to plow into new projects, we can do. So next we have procurement and awards. So we have worked with the HAC to figure out how are we going to do procurement, how are we going to find projects to partner with, how is this all going to work. So basically it's pretty simple. We're going to structure the loans as subordinate debt, which means it's going to be subordinate to the primary loan, which is going to be a heck of a lot bigger than ours. And we will probably do some kind of lower interest rate. I'm very wary of going below the IRS minimum, but that's sort of what we're thinking is IRS minimum, which right now is around 4%. So that's sort of what we're targeting. All awards are going to be conditional until the project actually reaches closing. So we're going to release a notice of funds available. They're going to apply. We have worked with the HAC to devise what this year's round of priority criteria is going to be. We're going to score the projects, and then we are going to award the funds conditionally. And the condition is going to be, you have to make it to closing, and once you make it to closing, we have to bring the whole thing before council, and council has to approve. So that is the Affordable Housing Fund. Does anyone have any questions on that? I know it's a lot to sort of throw at you guys.
Councilmember Marriott.
And so that was the one I was going to ask you questions about from your previous slide. So you're talking about making subordinate loans to some of these projects. What's the plan if any of these don't perform? As a subordinate loan holder, what's the plan? How do you protect your equity?
So there isn't a ton of protection on the equity. We are really relying on the investor partner who is purchasing the LIHTC and the private lender. We're sort of piggybacking off of their due diligence. At the end of the day, they have a lot more risk than we do. And these loans are not going to be, so private debt, the private debt for some of these projects could be in the tens of millions of dollars. And realistically, you know, we're going to kick 500-ish to maybe up to 900-ish thousand dollars towards this project. So there isn't a ton of protection. The protection that we have is that somebody else thinks that it's okay to dunk $30 million into this project. The other protection that we have is that we do our own due diligence. We look through the financials. We make sure that this is a feasible project. We will not be awarding anything to somebody who doesn't have a realistic plan for making this work.
The private debt's not subordinate, though.
The private debt is not subordinate, no. So if the property gets sold, you know, we're going to try to be second in line. But at the end of the day, these projects do not cash flow very well. So there is going to be some risk involved.
Yet the other way you can protect yourself as subordinate debt is have the ability to own the first. And I don't see where we would be in any position to do that in any of these. Is that correct?
No, we really can't. So these structures are really heavily negotiated between the investor partner and the private debt provider. Any kind of claim that we want to make to have first priority to be repaid if the project goes under, the private lender is going to walk away, and the developer is most likely going to prioritize investor and private lender participation over ours.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that. I was suggesting, you know, one of the ways you can protect yourself as a subordinate lender is that if the first debt or all the debt in front of you were to go into receivership or bankruptcy or foreclosure or any of those mechanisms, if you as a subordinate debt holder can buy that debt, then you protect your equity and yours. But I don't see
very expensive.
I don't see how we in the city would ever do that.
Yeah, so these things are leveraged to the hilt. Any penny, so they usually have a debt service coverage ratio of about 1.15. So that means that about 85% of their NOI is going towards that first mortgage. And again, they, especially over time, they do not cash flow great. To buy all that debt, I think it's tens of millions of dollars to do so.
So do we have anything, and this might be a better question for one of our financial staff members or something, do we have anything like, how do we keep the city from being in a vulnerable position there? I mean, I think we were talking earlier today about what do we want the auditors to look at? I'd love to have the auditor's opinion on this. You know, their interest would be, can the city be hooked by something like this? And, you know, I don't know, do we have anything in place to keep that from happening?
All of these agreements are reviewed by our auditor as part of our both our audit and in our programs in housing. And usually our ownership in a lot of this is so little that even if we're on the hook, we would be okay. Because the majority of the time, what is our ownership percentage?
0.01%.
So we're only potentially on the hook for that, and what we really have at risk is our subordinate loan that could turn into zero.
Yeah, on the ones that we have loans, correct.
Yeah.
And that's the proposal here, is for this fund to make loans.
Yeah. Yes. So something that I am doing is we are trying to make sure that we're structuring the loan in such a way so that at least the interest is usually being paid, because we have seen situations where an affordable housing project will have principal and interest payments deferred for a long period of time, and then honestly, by the time you get to the point where you're paying back the interest has accrued to such a point that there is no way the project could actually pay it without having to declare financial bankruptcy or being foreclosed on. So something we are doing is we are saying to developers, hey, even if your financial structure does not allow for principal repayments, you have to at least carry the interest so that it does not accrue.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. I've seen that too in my time here on council, where we allowed one of these to negatively amortize, and then of course when it came time to refinance that debt, there was, oh, we can't possibly pay all that, you just have to forgive it. And it was a bad deal for the residents of the city to just give up a couple $1 million like that. Let me ask you one other question.
Sure.
Who is reviewing these deals? I mean, these are deals that in the outside, there'd be, you know, a number of people who are highly trained specialists in these fields to review these deals and come up with terms, negotiate, all of that stuff. How are we handling all that? Do we have a consultant we pay?
I was a consultant for 6 years doing this exact same thing.
Okay. But you're just one. I mean, normally in the outside,
I am just one,
this
but
would
we
be
don't have that many in
accountants.
our pipeline right now.
We'd have accountants, we'd have legal, we'd have, you know, finance, we'd have a number of different specialists.
They are part of the negotiations.
Legal reviews everything.
Okay, all right. I'll just make a comment. I think this is a good creative way, but it looks to me like it's got lots of pitfalls. So I would encourage you to don't be exuberant about it and don't get ahead of your skis on this kind of stuff. That having this available is a good thing, but throwing it out there as fast as you can may not be the right answer here. That you want to proceed cautiously and look at each deal as on its own. Is this a good deal for the taxpayers of Arvada, who are actually the ones providing this subsidy? It's not really the repayment of in lieu of property taxes. It's the people who it's the citizens of it.
Yeah.
And I would just be really careful. I mean, this just looks full of peril in a very complicated, difficult transaction. So, but otherwise, the concept of it, I think, is very good.
Yeah, and you know, we didn't really get a chance to go too far into it, but I do have a bonus slide on what our priority criteria is. Basically, we have worked with the HAC to identify very specific priority and threshold criteria. And if a project cannot meet the threshold criteria, it can't apply. You're automatically disqualified. And we've worked with the HAC to identify what our priorities are for the year. But again, financial feasibility is a very high priority. There's always going to be risk. There's always risk in releasing money. And Carrie and I have also talked very extensively about establishing a potential baseline amount that we always want to have in the fund. We are going to review every year what our fund looks like, what our projections are over the next couple of years to really figure out what is a safe amount to release so that we still have funds left over. And if the answer is zero, then unfortunately that year it has to be zero, which is kind of why we have to sort of look at other sources to be explored.
Okay. And I have just one other quick comment, one other note I had written down. You know, the last one of these that came before us, I voted no on.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is because we didn't have anywhere near enough information to make these kinds of decisions. that in the future, as you bring these forward, if you'd provide us with the pro formas, and we can dig as deep as we want to in it, but we should get all the information you have when we go to evaluate these, so that we can put our own evaluation on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the $840,000 to legacy senior residents, that was something that was promised back in 2019 or 18. So that did not go through the new procurement process that we have designed. So in the future, anything that comes before you asking for a withdrawal from this fund will be excessively documented and scored.
Thank you. Councilmember Ambrose.
I just want to be clear about what burden is put on the Arvada taxpayer to provide this program, because the $3 million didn't come from any Arvada taxpayers, correct?
Correct.
That came from other unused funding that you all pulled together to create this fund.
Yes.
And then the SLP is basically saying any developer who would pay taxes to federal, to state, to municipal, to county, do not have to pay any of those taxes because they have an SLP with the city of Arvada.
Yes.
So the funding that we miss there is, again, not the Arvada taxpayer, but maybe the city of Arvada would be missing some funding that we would get if we tax the project for our normal tax rates.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely an opportunity cost. I mean, this is something that honestly is kind of unique to the state of Colorado. I hadn't seen it anywhere before I came here. And I think it's a really good tool, especially for a city and a housing authority such as Arvada, because we don't have a ton else to offer these developers. And this gets us into the ownership structure of the property. And what's really nice about this is they have to keep us in their partnership long-term to retain these tax advantages. So that means when the income restrictions for LIHTC, for if they get FHLB, if they get some DOLA funding, if that expires and they want to keep their tax advantage status, they have to keep us in. So we can say to them, you have to stay affordable, you can't go market. So I think it's actually a really powerful tool because it really gets our hooks into the project and ensures that it remains affordable for as long as the city government exists.
Right, because you're saving them possibly millions of dollars of taxes.
Yes.
And you are charging $150,000 for one project, $150,000 for another, $125,000.
So to be clear, the $150,000 expires after a set period of time. So I believe the $150,000 is, I forgot if it was 10 or 7 years, because we were playing with both.
But that's $150,000 for 7 years that they can pay it back, or whatever the terms are that you set.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you're charging them $150,000 per year.
No.
So they're saving millions, again, by participating in this.
They are saving millions, but I will also say that they don't have the millions to pay. So without this tax advantage status, a lot of these projects just wouldn't exist.
Okay, so this is not, like the developer's like, yay, I can throw a party because I saved millions of dollars. It's like this project is now fiscally doable because we don't have that much of a tax burden.
That is correct.
Okay.
We make sure that they are contributing very heavily to their own project.
So again, what Arvada taxpayers are paying for in order to have this program is your salary, legal salary to review this? Any other costs for Arvada taxpayers?
I don't think so.
Carrie's salary. Okay, so through paying your two salaries and our legal department to look at this, we get to help developers save millions of dollars. And the people who are losing out on that money would be the federal government or the state government or the county or the municipality. That's the people who would miss out on those tax dollars.
I wouldn't say save millions of dollars. So what happens is, as I sort of mentioned before, if you have to pay taxes, it's counted as a net operating expense. So when the developer goes to the bank and says, hey, I need to borrow $50 million to build this 200-unit project, what the bank is going to look at is their net operating income, which is their total projected revenue, which honestly is pretty easy because there's always very low vacancy in these things, and their total minus their total operating expenses. And then that'll give them their NOI. And then they're allowed to spend depending on the bank, up to 85% of that NOI as a debt service payment. So whatever that 85% can support, they can leverage. So by pulling out the tax line here, what we're actually doing is we are increasing by an exponential amount well, not quite exponential, a multiplier, let's say a multiplier effect. We are increasing by a multiplier effect the amount of debt that they can pull out. So by saying, hey, you don't have to pay us $100,000 in taxes per year, what happens is their NOI line goes up. So if that goes up, then they can use that to leverage with the bank for more debt. So if we say, okay, we're not going to collect $100,000 in taxes, depending on the interest rate, that could yield an extra $500,000 or $600,000 in permanent debt.
Okay, thank you. I'm totally new to all this, so I
No, it's
appreciate
okay.
you breaking
It's super
that down.
confusing.
Yeah.
I get myself
Davis.
tongue-tied all the time. Anyone else?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Could you just clarify, maybe I missed something. I thought it was just the property taxes, and we weren't talking about state, federal
So it's
taxes,
state and local.
just state and local,
Yeah.
but not the federal.
No,
taxes.
sorry, yeah, that was,
Okay,
I
and
forgot to catch that.
so, okay, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, I thought in the beginning it was just property tax we were talking about. So, I guess I was unclear on that. Okay, so it's just state and.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes, please.
So it depends on what our partnerships are as well. We also forego sales tax on these developments if we're a partner up front. Well, we can't do anything about the federal taxes, yeah.
Yeah, this is a Colorado program. Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch that before.
All right, I think we're good to continue.
Okay. Actually, we are almost done. So we worked with the HAC, and this is what we have identified as threshold criteria. And this is what we've identified as our priorities. So just really quick, we want something that's going to either yield or rehabilitate income-restricted units. So we learned the difference between income-restricted and the sort of no restriction model. We need a feasible repayment plan. We are setting the minimum at the applicable federal rate. Right now, it's like between like 3, 6, and 4. It kind of bounces around. So whatever it is at the time that the deal is penciled, that's what it's going to be. We're saying a loan term, 30 years, you got to pay us back. But we might be willing to amortize it over 40 years, which means your payments are going to be lower, but at 30 years, you're going to have a balloon payment. We insist on developer and applicant contribution to the permanent sources, so you can't take the money and run. If you're a rental property, we're looking for a government entity SLP. Sometimes they choose to partner with Foothills over Arvada. But again, this is threshold criteria. And then if it's acquisition funding, we're thinking we want a restricted covenant. You can't use our money to buy something that you then decide later to develop as a market rate property. Our priorities, obviously, we want to be the SLP so that we can collect the SLP fee and use it to help fund future projects. We want new construction or conversion of market rate property into income restricted property. Lower funding requests per unit, that just means more units, better. Funds that can be released at conversion or at lease up as opposed to pre-development or construction. So there's an advantage to having the funds released later in the construction life cycle because it's closer to when the project is actually going to start to generate income. Or we can use it as a bridge loan, which means we only have to lend for the construction period, and then at conversion we can be paid back. So that would be like a 2 to 3 year turnaround versus having it come in as permanent funding, in which case it could take us 30 years to be paid back fully. I would like significant development contribution or developer contribution. So for me, that means they are deferring their developer fee out past year 10. So that means a high level of deferred developer fee. I want them to have skin in the game. And then we also have a shovel ready, which means it's properly zoned, and they've cobbled together their funding. So these things have really robust and lengthy capital stacks that could sometimes be comprised of 7, 8, 9 different loans. Ideally, I would like to be the last loan to come in that just pushes them over the edge, but in some cases that may not be possible because there are some grant financing out there that requires a match. So if you apply to us and say, hey, I'm not fully funded, but I want to use you as a match, show me your plan. And finally, the applicant proposes loan terms that are more favorable than the threshold that I've outlined here. So that's it. Questions, concerns?
Councilmember Marriott.
Yeah, so comment or question maybe more so than comment. So I'll start with a comment though. So subsidizing new construction is probably the worst way to have housing if your parameters are a limited amount of money and you want to subsidize as many units as you can. You're taking the most expensive units and you're subsidizing them, which means just simply you can do fewer of them. Mm-hmm. And so another strategy could be that instead of trying to subsidize the most expensive units in town, that you try to subsidize the cheapest units in town. So on one of your slides, I think you called it naturally occurring affordable housing or something like that. Mm-hmm. Is the housing group or the housing committee, and Lisa can maybe answer this, working on any plan to try to make your money go farther by subsidizing the cheapest housing in town instead of the most expensive housing in town? Or are we really just looking at building new stuff and that's it?
So I want to just add a little caveat. With affordable housing, particularly if you're going to use any federal money at all, it needs to be built to certain standards. And I've actually seen rehab projects end up being more expensive than new construction projects just because you don't always know what you're walking into. You may enter into it thinking that it's going to be a rehab project and then end up spending so much more per unit than you would have had it been new construction and designed from the first place. Uncertainty in construction really can just add to costs. So we don't necessarily know that is going to be cheaper. It could be. It's 100% possible. If we can identify a property that only needs 20 grand to work per unit, like great, that sounds awesome. But in terms of a lot of these larger scale initiatives, new construction really can provide a little bit more certainty than rehab. It can be easy for rehab to go off the rails.
So my look at it would be that you can buy existing housing for about 2/3 the cost of buying new housing of any type, pick your type. And it doesn't have to be rehab. There's existing housing that doesn't have to be rehabbed as well. And it's at a discount over buying new stuff. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So I think it's not as simple as just saying, well, we don't want to rehab something or there could be pitfalls or something like that. I guess I would just encourage you to think about it.
Yeah, of course.
And think about, you're going to have $3 million that you get to do what you want to do with. It's not tied to federal money that's got the federal strings on it. And it doesn't have, the 1, 2, 3 stuff where the state's going to try to tell you what to do and all that. But I would encourage you to think broadly or think outside the box a little bit about it and not just default to the conventional wisdom or the conventional, that shiny things are fun. It's really fun to go to a ribbon cutting at a brand new building or see a new hole dug in the ground or whatever. But if your real goal is how many of these units can we do with the limited amount of money we have, it appears to me that there's plenty of headroom for other approaches too. And I would encourage you guys and your housing committee to not just brush those off because we've got this formula that we think we're on track with, and look at other ways of doing it where you can potentially just make your money go further and make your mission better because you're gonna subsidize more units if you can do each one for a little less money. So anyway.
Of course.
Can I add?
Sure.
Something real quick? And I like the idea of looking at preservation of the naturally occurring affordable housing, because if we don't take that into consideration or we don't look at these properties that as they go up traditionally, they've been affordable, but as they go up for sale, they're at risk of being purchased by a developer and then being flipped at the market rate cost. So I think it would serve us well to take a closer look at preservation and what we can do to take advantage of those opportunities and keep it naturally occurring affordable housing.
So let me give you an example. Right now, every owner of multifamily housing in Arvada that's old is being compelled over the next short amount of time to change their fire alarm systems. And this compulsion is going to come with potentially some really high costs. And the owner of that property is not going to pay those costs. The people who live there are going to pay those costs because they're the only ones who can. You know, the owners pass money through, but the people who live there will pay those costs. And there's probably room for you to work with some of those people who are about to be profoundly impacted by a compulsion to do something, and work with them and say, hey, maybe we'll pay that cost for you in exchange for. And the in exchange for is what you can get from them. And I think I just encourage you to, you know, this all looks fine, but this looks like a formula, one formula. It looks like something, honestly, that the Wall Street guys and the developers would come to you and say, here's the program you should have because this really helps us out. The reality is I think there's lots of other approaches too, and I would just keep your eyes open, just see what you can do with that, keeping the big picture in mind that just might get you a little more room.
Sure. I don't see any more lights. Thank you both so much.
Sorry, we're just going to wrap up the discussion. I know it's taken a long time. There have been a lot of great questions. Obviously, we're available in the future. We'll be back on March 25th to continue with our housing workshop. We'll be talking about the strategic plan. So any other questions in the meantime, please feel free to forward those. We'll get them out and get them answered. So thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Our next workshop is on the emergency management overview, and we have presenter Nick Adams.
Mayor Simpson, City Council, good evening. Sorry that it's 9 and I'm just now presenting. I know this is the riveting stuff you wanted the whole time. I'm going to give you just a real brief overview of what is emergency management and what is emergency management in Arvada, right? It's different at every level. The idea behind this is we have obviously a new mayor, we have some new council moves around, so just really give you guys enough information to understand if an incident happens, like we've had these snow emergencies over the past couple weeks, what we're doing here, what processes are already established, what our long-term goals are, and then what roles are for the mayor and city council. So what is emergency management? It's planning for and handling risks that may impact communities. So these are the 5 mission areas that FEMA has prescribed. FEMA is a very doctrinal agency. They don't really tell us how to do anything. They give a national standard. They give some good terminology. By the time it gets down to municipal level like ourselves, it's kind of build it your own way and see what works really well for your structure. So in the state of Colorado, we have the Colorado Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. So that's our state level entity that things get funneled up to, mostly requests for support on the bad days. Moving down into the county level, we fall under both Jefferson County and Adams County, so they both have offices of emergency management. They're required by state code to have those emergency management divisions and operate an emergency action plan. When it gets down here to the city level, that is not a required tenant by the state. That is something a municipality can take on. Sometimes they contract with their county to handle it. It's all handled very differently. So we have a relatively robust program, I would say, compared to other areas around us. Obviously, being one of the larger cities in the state, we have the population that we just have to have something stood up. So, we look at prevention and mitigation and preparedness. Those are all those pre-event things. Prevention really only pertains to terrorist attacks, right? Because those are the only things you can prevent. Can't prevent a wildfire, can't prevent a natural disaster, but you can prepare and mitigate for them. Response, obviously, is that active 4 hours, a week, whatever it is, and then everything after that is recovery of making the community whole again. So who contributes to emergency management? Obviously yourselves right up there at the top, elected officials, right? We've got public safety agencies, local government, partner agencies, but the big ones are private industry and our community, right? So we have 120,000-ish people that live here in the city of Arvada, they are forever and always going to do more than I'm ever able to do as one person. So educating and involving those community members, the people of your districts that support you and you support them, that's where we really get the bang for our buck on how we can make Arvada a little bit more resilient and be prepared for these events that will inevitably occur. Private industry also is a heavy arm, right? They've got usually the either cash flow or logistical support to manipulate whatever they need to. Is it Home Depot that has all of the boards that we need to board up some residents right after a major flooding accident, or do they have the equipment rental for fire demo afterwards, right? They're the ones that can move a little bit quicker than we can, and they have that logistical arm that we just don't at our capacity level. So we're going to move into the mission areas and just kind of talk about what we're doing here at the city level to better educate you. So preparedness and mitigation, like I said, they kind of go hand in hand. Mitigation focuses more on acts usually, right? So that's like floodplain mitigation. That's going in and cutting back trees in a wildfire area, whereas preparedness is traditionally more internal. That's someone making a go bag in their house, making digital copies of their documents, us making plans so that we kind of know what's going on. Not quite as operationally visual. So we have the Jefferson County Hazard Mitigation Plan in 2021 that gets updated next year. So that's where we identify what are the things that are most likely to affect us. Right now, just for your situational awareness, our big issues are obviously wildfire, flooding, cyber attacks. Those are the main three that are probably going to affect us. The extreme weather, windstorm scenario along the Front Range here, especially in the closer to the foothills like we are, that's going to, we have a high probability of that occurring, but it's a relatively low risk on the impacts that are going to occur. So we have our own emergency operations plan here. The county also has one, and that just kind of tells us how to operate when we go into emergency mode. It tells us roles and responsibility of our directors over there, of who's going to do what during those periods. We have some mitigation projects that we've interacted with, right? So right now we're doing a feasibility study on Ralston Creek for some of our floodplain area. That is a federal grant that we were able to apply for and got selected. So that goes in and looks at how do we mitigate the potential floodplain in an area and either widen flows, strengthen barriers to prevent flood risk to homeowners. So those are those things that happen years ahead and take a while, but they give you a really solid impact during an event that will save homeowners from losing their houses. Something that we have worked with Arvada Fire on is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Again, that's another one of those, takes a couple years on the front end, but identifies a lot of actionable items that we can take to better protect our residents. We've got some federal and local grant applications for mitigation projects. Like I said, the one was the Ralston Creek, some of the brick grants and all that stuff we can apply for. It really just depends. We have to usually have a pretty good scope ahead of time going into those. Training and exercise of staff, external partners, volunteer organizations like our city's CERT team. Those are all ways that we can prepare and mitigate, and we do. So we've got, on the next slide, the Emergency Operations Center. We have one here in this building, and then we have one over at our Indiana Street location. And going through drills and exercises there kind of help us prepare for when we go into this response mode. And that is, where we go into the Emergency Operations Center. And all that really provides us is a physical space. It can be virtual as well, to sit there and talk through, if I need to talk to Brian about financial aspects of, what we're doing, what do we really have to be able to cash flow to affect change, or if we talk about the streets division, what resources do they have out there deployed. It's just a big think tank to coordinate resource support and plan support for existing items in there. We do have some active mutual aid agreements and MOUs with some of our surrounding jurisdictions. So the Jeffco Adams Hazmat Response Authority, we are involved in that in a mutual aid agreement. So hazmat event occurs anywhere within city limits, that is the responding agency. Obviously, that's outside of the city scope. Donation management, we're working on one with the Colorado Gives folks right down the road to handle, obviously, if an event happens, people want to give, and that's not something that we have the capacity built out ahead of time. So if we can build those, it's insane amounts of people that want to come support, which is awesome, but it's just such a capacity issue at the end of the day. There's 10 of us in a room, we don't have the accounting line set up for it or any of that stuff. We have victim services for crisis care. We have some mass care services right through the Red Cross and through some of our other partner agencies. So we have some, but that's really where we can make some more money ahead of time of building those during the preparedness phase so we can better respond. And then active contracts, we have debris removal. So, one of those high wind events or snowstorms comes and starts knocking things down, even wildfire, we have structures or facilities that need to be knocked down. That's where we kind of get into that debris removal to, again, make it where we can access roadways, we can do those baseline life safety aspects of getting people to food and water out of their homes and operate a city at the bare minimum that we need to. All right, and then recovery. So recovery is by far the largest aspect of emergency management. I don't know what familiarity you guys have with the Waldo Canyon fire back in 2012. Last year, they just finished the recovery for that. So 11 years, 10 years-ish. Marshall Fire, that was 3 years ago. I'd say they have maybe 4% of the people back in their houses. Everyone else is either either sold their property because they see what that's looking like, or they're still living in a rental and their insurance is all expiring because the long-term coverage aspects of all of it. So again, that's something that we're looking at. We're hopefully going to improve on some of our recovery aspects. We do have a disaster recovery plan. It just needs to be updated, and it needs to look at lessons learned from something like Marshall and one of those most catastrophic scenarios. And if we can better plan for something like that, when the smaller events happen, it's easier for us to recover. Partnering with volunteer organizations to provide recovery services, right? Again, that's something, it's a capacity issue. We don't necessarily have that, but there are nonprofits and volunteer organizations. That's all they do is recovery. I know a couple of you work with Team Rubicon. They do response, they do some recovery of clearing out residences for folks and all that stuff, right? It's one of the steps of recovery, but that's such a long-term thing. It's working and developing those relationships with those partners in our community to better affect everybody. And then working with Jeffco and Adams County Office of Emergency Management for federal aid. So we have some fancy whiz-bang systems that are in effect now that are mandated by the state that we use to kind of track what damage has occurred during an event and how we apply for public assistance. But public assistance is what comes from FEMA or the Fed in general and allows us to rebuild damages that were done to our stuff. Individual assistance is for those individual homeowners, but that all falls after insurance. So insurance goes primarily, and then those funds come in. So we'll talk about authorities during a disaster. So City Code Chapter 26, that's really what's going to provide all of our guidance on what does declaring an emergency look like and those powers. I didn't list out the whole thing. If you have questions, obviously I can follow up on those, but really what it comes down to is city manager authority to declare that civil emergency or disaster. That's going to unlock just abridged processes on a couple different aspects. And you kind of saw it during COVID of being able to do some mandates in public areas and all that kind of stuff. Those are just some examples of what comes with that. Obviously, as you go up the chain, when the state declares an emergency like they did 2.5 weeks ago, the whole reason behind that was the cold weather, and the whole end game of that was to mobilize National Guard and contracts that they had to provide shelter support for our unhoused that were in the severe weather shelter network. Or other nonprofit partners across state. But that's really what that end state gets to is certain contracts turn on with declarations and certain funding sources can be allocated. All right, so we'll talk about roles real quick. Luckily, I have some pretty recent examples, so super nice because things keep happening. So Mayor Simpson, for you, we just did this a couple weeks ago, right? And I commend you greatly. You were a rock star through the whole process. Again, we have some processes established. I've got a lot of interpersonal connections with our partners that were handling all these things, and we met at the city manager level, and then you were right there kind of following up with our city manager and then being that echoing voice in the region asking for support. And that's really what it comes down to is there's going to be certain briefings and meetings that the city manager and yourself are privy to that can ask for more regional aid or ask for one of the counties to step up and ask the state, right? Because some of those things have to funnel through the county just because of how the mandates are with emergency management. So again, just being that voice once we've kind of made our action plan here at the staff level and echoing that, that's the big aspect of it. For the rest of the council members, big thing is going to be supporting city staff. So disaster occurs, whatever plans we have are the plans that we have. That's not the time to make new plans. Obviously, we can adjust and, audible as we need to, but what I've seen a lot of mirroring jurisdictions do is the second that the big thing happens, right, like Maui or something like that, everyone starts going under the bus, right? And there may be a time for that, but when we're actively dealing with an incident and we're trying to save people's lives, get them into some sort of temporary stable housing situation, put out the fires, that's not the time. The unified front is what really helps in those scenarios. And I know the example I think of is a couple weeks ago when we presented to Leiden. We had a couple, or Leiden Rock, we had a couple council members jump in and just say, hey, this is what the city's been doing for the last year on this project. We really support it. Here's X, Y, and Z as to why, and just providing that unified front, and if there's some things that disagree on, hopefully we can head those off at the front end of it, or we can head it off afterwards. But, when we're going through a mitigation project or response project, when it's everybody pulling, pistols in the room and pointing each other like that, that's just the public trust is lost at that point. And now we're fighting another battle. We've got houses on fire, and now the residents don't trust us because we have plans, but they don't think that they're working. So, that's really the end state for what we have to ask of you during these roles.
Councilmember Foray?
So you're saying that we shouldn't tell everyone to donate all the goods to my garage?
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, it's
tracking.
But, it's funny you bring that up. So prior to this, I worked at Jeffco Public Health as an emergency planner and had some responses with them. And even something like that, I've seen happen over there at the Jeffco level of one of the county electeds would say something of, oh, hey, come out and donate, or we need some help here, but they haven't talked to the other 5 folks that are working on this project. So you've got people showing up with, used jackets and used underwear, and it's like, well, there's no one here in the city to provide a service to accept this. But that's how people cope, right? People want to donate. People want to be involved when the bad things happen. So if they get misdirected, then it just takes more of our staffing to jump on that. So I appreciate you bringing that up, but it's a legitimate scenario I've seen play out multiple times. So, and this is just a breakdown of a very high-level, large-scale incident. This is the model that we kind of operate under of having a tiered command, right? So let's say it's a snowstorm and the guys are out there plowing the streets. They've got a supervisor, and then they've got some workers underneath of that, and then they report up. All this is really meant to show you is that we do have a structure. It's not like everyone just out there running in whatever direction. There's guidance, there's coordination. We're having meetings to talk about the direction that we take, whatever incident it is, and do those meetings need to be every 3 hours? Do they need to be every 24 hours? It's very incident dependent, but I do want you to know that it's not a free-for-all.
Councilmember Ambrose?
Yeah, I wanted to go back up to a slide about the emergency management declaration. So
Yes.
the examples you gave of like Colorado declaring a state of emergency gave them access to contracts and funding. But if Arvada declares a state of emergency, there's no special pot of money that we get access to, right?
So, and it's not a state of emergency for us. It's just
city of emergency? I don't know.
a declaration of emergency for us.
Declaration of emergency,
It's going to give the city manager some more authority, and you could probably speak more intelligently to the exact ins and outs of what that scope is.
Yeah, just generally, it frees up the city manager to be able to make decisions that they need to in a shorter time span, rather than having to come to council with every decision, which might not be feasible during an emergency. And so that's really a lot of what Chapter 26 of our code is intended to cover. It also does cover the type of work that we are doing here in the planning and sort of resilience side of things. But yeah, that's primarily the goal behind our declaration of emergency.
Councilmember Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been in touch with a lot of our residents, and one of the things that they were concerned about was active shooter at schools, and you didn't happen to mention that as part of when the EOC would be activated. So just to be frank, our residents don't want to see another Uvalde. So I'm hoping that when you're talking about the IGAs and the MOUs, that we have that incident command set up so that we don't have that kind of a miscommunication into the future. And then just another comment, we have resource officers at high schools because we say that there are more incidents there. But some of the most recent active shooter incidents have been at elementary schools and middle schools. So are we planning for that? That's on our radar in terms of emergency management?
So the scope of the active shooter, police and schools, that all falls under the PD. I have zero authority over any of the departments. It's the same way that they plow the streets the way they're going to plow. I coordinate with them, and I've talked with Deputy Chief Reeves about those exact incidents of, hey, in the way of our forward, our other EOC that we have over there on the other side of town, if an event happened over there, active shooter in a school, active shooter at a residence, whatever that scenario is, hey, we can use that for you guys to operate out of, where we're over here coordinating from further away and not pulling, being too distracting, being right there on it. So it's an aspect of it. We take the all hazards approach, so it's not like we're going to pour 800 hours into this one event and then be blind to the wildfire or anything. We try to get that more universal approach of whatever the incident is, we're going to respond that same way, no matter what. So.
Apologies, Ms. Gillis. I didn't realize you were about to say something to the previous question.
We're covered. Let's keep going.
All right.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Councilmember Ambrose. Oh, withdrawn. Okay. Please continue.
All right, and that is the conclusion of it. So, now, if you want to go back to that, I'm sure, or I don't want to assume, but I know part of what we were talking about was the funding aspect of it. We don't have some big giant pot of money that gets unlocked when we declare. Again, it just really comes down to that quick decision making of, if it's something like a wildfire or a flood. I mean, you can look in Southern California right now. That's such a rapidly evolving situation that they're getting from these landslides and floods that they don't have time to go through some of those formal processes for some of the agreements they're getting into, of just even getting people out of those locations and into a sheltered location. It's, hey, we're making this agreement right now to just get in a contract to house these people for a week.
Right, and that was the point I was going to say, is that it probably gives you as a city manager flexibilities to spend funds differently than what had already been previously approved.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Then Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have two comments. One is with the Marshall Fire. That was a horrible experience for all of us, and my recollection of that day is I've had neighbors coming to me kind of very much in a panic about what should we do, where should we get information about what are the plans for Arvada in case the fire would move. And as I recall, if my memory serves me correct, that kind of our response at that time was to direct everyone to the OEM in Boulder County. I don't feel that was adequate. I feel like we need to have a response ready in the city of Arvada to tell our residents and not be directing them to another county where the fire currently is happening, but what is our preparation and our plans in our city. So I'm just curious what is our thinking on that kind of response and being able to direct our residents when, even though the fire isn't now happening in Arvada, but some kind of natural disaster, but to be able to have a quicker, more local response for our residents and give them information as they need it.
So we're actually in the process of working through updating our website on the emergency management page just to provide, it was pretty antiquated if we're being frank. So we're providing, our plan is going to be on there once we can get it fully accessible for everybody as that new House bill, right? But everything in the way of just what Arvada is doing ahead of time is going to be published on there. When it comes to a incident specific item like that, that's pretty much the industry standard for what do we do, because Boulder, when they're in active response, they're the ones that have jurisdiction over that fire because it's most likely no longer Boulder. Incident command is coming in from the state or a higher level and managing that, right? It's whatever large-scale fire company is there running the fire operations. They're the one making those decisions. But that main emergency operations center, which was in Boulder for that scenario, they're the ones that have the most up-to-date information and messaging. So when it comes to something like that, we're just mirroring their messaging because we don't want to put out our own guidance that
Sure.
conflicts anything that they say.
I hear that, and I guess but what I would just kind of add to that is that mirroring their messaging for me would mean someone going to the Arvada City website and there's the messaging, right?
Yep.
And I don't recall that happening during the Marshall Fire. So I'm just, reiterating what my memory serves as people were coming to me asking, what should we do? And it was kind of that. People come to Arvada to know what's going on in Arvada, right?
100%.
So I'm just again reiterating that if we can have more of that communication happen at the city level, I get we want to just be conveying the message that's happening at where the disaster and the emergency management is happening, but just that we are having that communication link there for our residents.
That is my end goal with our updates is to have an area, whether it be on the main page or on our particular page that has something we can turn on. We have those capabilities of turning on an emergency banner and just having that same exact aspect of we're aware and tracking, please visit whatever this is. If we link them out at that point, at least they're going, again, to the website. It's the same thing across Facebook and every other platform that we have possible to communicate. They're getting that same information of we're aware. So,
and then the second point I want to make is I hope you're aware that the Sustainability Division is doing a climate action plan, and I think I see intersectionality between your work and what they're going to be doing, thinking about climate resiliency. And you made the comment earlier about prevention. I mean, there is one example that I'm aware of, the work that Boulder is doing around their Cool Boulder effort to look at how do they plant trees to lower the microclimate that then helps prevent fires from happening at a local level, protects our homes, also reduce the risk of rising heat on health impacts and that sort of thing. So I see a lot of intersectionality there that I hope that happens within our city and looking at that with our Sustainability Division.
Yeah, I just finished my master's program and my focus was on dam emergency action plans, and it had a basis on climate change and just how those climate changes are changing the risks for dams, right? Because erosion and soil breakdown from lack of moisture and then flash flooding is a very different scenario now than it was 40 years ago when some of these federal rules were made. So it's a lens that I take every plan with, and a lot of the federal grants are starting to shift that way as well. I may be misspeaking, but I believe it's the BRIC grants or one of those ones at that level that have that nexus. If you can, tie it into a mitigating factor for climate change, you get bonus points for your application and you can get additional funding for it. So it's definitely something that, like I said, is in the forefront of my mind as I'm looking at some of our plans and ways we can help out the city of Arvada.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
We didn't go into it here, but I recall last time, before you were here, that we had a continuity of government discussion at one point. Just because we put her in charge doesn't mean we don't have to make decisions up here, which that's not true. So somewhere in there, I'm assuming, depending on the severity of the emergency, there still needs to be a plan for us to get together to make decisions, right? Lori, I'm looking to you, because I remember we had that conversation very clear.
Absolutely. I mean, we're speaking right here just from the angle of his emergency preparedness, but of course.
Yeah, it should be peppered somewhere in there that when are we triggered and when do we gather and that kind of stuff. I'm sure we'll be called and you would tell us to show up here, but if there's a Marshall Fire that's ripping through the city, it'd be hard for some of us to get here depending on the situation. But if there is some sort of, I never understood exactly what our potential decision-making requirements may be, but maybe we can talk about scenarios in which we would be activated.
Definitely. And what I would ensure is the EOC is separate and council is separate, and we would pull that together and we would have those communications outside of the EOC, but definitely there would be involvement. The purpose of the emergency declaration is, and we saw this during the 2013 floods, is the ability to partner with like in the flood situation, we didn't establish formal intergovernmental agreements, but we had property. We have things like co-warn that we have things in place already to keep things moving that come more quickly under the emergency declaration, but definitely there would be council involved and definitely parameters around the authority. The authority that's given to me, though, is to act when I need to act quickly.
Yeah.
So.
It's just where is that threshold where we have to be activated to help support you? It's not very clear.
We can work
that's
on that.
something- Like I said, it might be something separate, but
Okay.
it'd be good. Thank you.
And I don't have a visual on that, but to Lori's point, you know, here's the EOC, right? And we operate very autonomously from the incident that's happening over here. We're just here to support them. And then, you know, I'm running this operation over here, and Lori's here talking with you guys, and I'm, you know, talking between that, and she's really the bridge between the council and that, the policy level influence and the decisions that need to be made there and us, and then we're even removed from the incident. You know, what we don't want is myself or Lori to be anywhere near that incident, because we don't, unless it's one that pertains to us. But, you know, if it's a fire incident, I'm not a firefighter. I've got a lot of experience in a lot of things, but that's not my thing, and I'm not going to tell them how to do it. All I'm going to do is get in their way. But if I can go order stuff for them, even down to the level of meals for one of their rotations or water for them, awesome. Helped facilitate. You guys keep on doing your thing. So there were some really good visuals on that. My long-term plan is to get you guys a course. It's called FEMA 402, and it's just for elected officials. And it talks about how those policies interact, and we can cater it to the city and all that good stuff. So more in depth than
Just
this.
one.
Go for it.
One last thought. Having served in EOC, I don't think I want politicians in the room.
I'll let you say that. I will refrain from saying that. But it just there's a lot of conversations that don't happen organically when there are elected officials in there, right? You know, there's conversations between myself and directors or whomever, down to, you know, Carrie from housing, who's helping out getting people into housing, that won't organically occur with certain folks in there, just from the pressures they feel. So that is the main reason.
Look, I run, one, I wasn't implying that, but two, I run the Office of Emergency Management for CDOT.
Yep.
I don't even show up to the state EOC, and I work for the state.
I try to avoid
I know
state.
where my space is. I don't have to be elected to know not to go there.
All right. I see no more lights. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next we will move to our second public comment period. Ms. Rush, do we have anyone on Zoom?
We do. We have Pat Noonan.
All right.
Am I ready to go?
You are, Mr. Noonan.
Very good. As noted, my name is Pat Noonan. I'm an Arvada resident. I'm a member of the Arvada Housing Advisory Committee, but not joining in that capacity tonight. Also, I am work for a housing nonprofit, and wanted to tie a couple things together in my comments tonight. There's a lot of great conversation and strong points made for the Homelessness Navigation Center. There's also a great conversation around what the city is trying to do through the Housing Advisory Committee and the development of an affordable housing fund. I think the two are so interrelated, and I hope that the city, as they continue to reflect on what they can do and the tools they can bring to bear to support housing in the city, will really take a deep look and explore what tools there could be available to really make a meaningful dent in this challenge we're facing. Not only do we need to think about navigation and a navigation center, but also more opportunities for housing, ranging from workforce housing to permanent supportive housing, to affordable homeownership, far across the spectrum. We need it all in Arvada, and we need multiple ways for people to gain economic mobility and stability as residents of Arvada. In my role as a housing nonprofit program director, I oversee a housing navigation team with 11 different navigators on it. It's for a statewide housing helpline, the only of its kind in the state. And I'll tell you, one of the most difficult things to do is to connect people reaching out for help to resources in Jefferson County. There are far too few resources to actually help stabilize people if they do face an eviction, to help them avoid that eviction, to get them rapidly rehoused if they become homeless, or to connect them to meaningful services in Jefferson County if they have experienced homelessness for a period of time. So really, I'd ask City Council to think far and wide about how to tie it all together. I think homelessness navigation campus is so critical to that, along with accompanying resources that might come with navigation, additional vouchers, additional funds for security deposit and first month's rent, as well as long-range solutions through broadening the Affordable Housing Fund to bring affordable homeownership, workforce housing, permanent supportive housing, and the like to Arvada to promote housing stability. And knowing it's been a long night, I'll keep it at that. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Noonan, and thank you for sticking with us. It was a long hearing tonight. We appreciate it. All right, time for City Council reports. Any Councilmember Ambrose?
Sorry, I didn't do the city council report last time because we were here really late, and now we're here even
Good.
later.
Go for it.
Anyway, I just wanted to do an update from the bid that the ice rink is down and that there's going to be a Mardi Gras event coming up on February 13th. That'll start at 5 p.m. in the town square. That the Arvada Economic Development folks appointed a treasurer and shared survey information that include rating satisfaction from businesses about doing businesses in Arvada. That the audit report from the city should be concluded by June 30th, and I hope with as many awards as we got last year. And then I also wanted to respond to the 68 minutes of public testimony tonight about the Navigation Center. I sent around a fact sheet from the Rising to council members, or actually Ms. Gillis did, about the increase in need. And that the Rising has had a 13% increase of services, unique clients since 2022, that they have had just an astounding increase, especially in families, since 2022, of 63% more families accessing services at the Rising than in 2022, according to their data. And, but they've also had a really great response from the community in that 288% more volunteer hours to the Rising, just showing how much it is part of the community fabric, especially with all of the congregations and faith communities that were here tonight. They were probably a large part of that. So I have given it to the city clerk to include these statistics in the public minutes. So it's part of the public record. So people who came tonight and were interested in, these issues can be looking at one of our service providers who does that, because they do, the Rising did receive CDBG funding through the city. And I also just wanted to say that, that with the different housing or the different types of services that is needed, whether it's to keep people from losing their homes or getting people in homes or helping people with wraparound services, that a Housing First initiative, there was a 2020 study of 26 studies about this, and that for every dollar that a city puts into a Housing First approach, the municipality, city, government entity saves $1.44, because you are putting in preventative cost around things like a navigation center instead of like paying it through emergency rooms or a police contact or things like that afterwards. There's a lot of different pressures that I think we're facing as a city in order to be providing this. I know, and so I want to address some of the misconceptions that we heard from the audience tonight, such as that all we have is super expensive development going up, which is not true. I know it looks like that around Wadsworth, but the reason why the market rate housing went up around Wadsworth right now is because we already know there's a lot of affordable housing in that area. And if you go to the city map, or the city website, there's a map that tells you how many affordable units are scheduled to become online, and the last time I checked, it was over 700. So people can look at these websites anytime they need to. And also, I just think there's a lot of funding pressures in that the city, the residents of this city have not approved a tax increase unless it was related to the police for the last 40 years. I was talking to Bob Dyer the other day, and he said that the mills are still 41 mills, even though that's how much they were when he first became a city council member back in 1993. So I would hope, and also Arvada doesn't have a large tax base as our residents like Lakewood and Flatirons have, because we don't have, or not Flatirons, up north, because we don't have a Flatirons and we don't have a Belmar, and 80% of our revenue is coming from sales tax. And then somebody said something about Adams County not being very, very forward-leaning into this, but Adams County is actually de-Bruced and worked with our outreach team over this past summer to be able to address some of the homeless folks in Old Town until the amount of services needed was too high and they had to go back to Adams County. So I think I just want to reiterate that to people who are all here and had to leave because it was too long, that the city team is doing everything they can to be able to do immediate help with outreach, to be able to provide wraparound services, to provide housing, to build affordable housing, to do the vouchers. Like, we are accessing all the services and trying to do all the things as much as possible. And even a number of us were at the Lakewood Navigation Center opening to look at it and research it, so that was also true. So I hope that all the folks that came tonight scroll to the end of this city council meeting to hear some of the things that we are doing. But at any rate, feel free to contact as city council members about what we are doing on this to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row and the facts straight, because all of this public pressure that comes on us is a little bit useless if the public is not also talking to each other. If you're not talking to your neighbor about, hey, we really want a navigation center, it could be in your neighborhood, what do you think about that? That's a hard conversation to have with your neighbors, and also one that needs to happen. And so we need the public who is so for a navigation center or other homelessness services to help turn the tide of public opinion to be able to say, well, this is worth spending city dollars on, or this is worth approving a new tax on, because Arvada typically, traditionally hasn't. So that's what I want to say to all the folks who came tonight to talk about a navigation center.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councilmember Mormon and I sponsored a safety meeting for the Alta Vista neighborhood, and it's really just my little neighborhood of 6 blocks. And it was very convenient on a snowy Saturday, but it was pretty well attended. We were very excited. And Commander Ammon, we want to say thank you to you for coming out and providing this really important information. Everybody found it very valuable, and we were able to give away some vehicle clubs, is that what they're called? Clubs. And so that was very exciting. Neighbors shared their experiences, which was very nice. I want to say thank you to Officer Christopher, who told us about what was going on in traffic. It just was such a great experience, and so I encourage you to attend, you in the public, to attend any kind of these safety meetings that APD puts on. You will find them very, very helpful for you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
We should do it on my side of the, I know you mentioned it, so I know, so maybe we'll do that. So I appreciate the comments as well, and I appreciate Shauna's passion for this as well, and we have competing priorities and resources and limited funds, and we have to consider these type of topics of where funding goes. So I think this Friday when we're at our retreat, we can go through some of those things of what is our priorities and what should we be doing. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. As far as something coming up, this Saturday is the Arvada Fire has their brand new brush fire truck, and they are doing a fire truck pull, I think it's what it's called. I think we all have to pull it out by hand. I'm not sure. It's a big truck, and when you realize the picture of it, I saw the picture. And as you know, Arvada has changed their color to red, their trucks, which is kind of sad that they're moving away from the white and blue. But that's this Saturday at 10 a.m. at Station 9. out in Candelas. So come join us out there for that event. And I think that's about it. I do have a traffic meeting out in Candelas as well, which is at February 21st with CDOT and our traffic team here at the city to talk about traffic safety in the area. So those that want to join us will be at the Townview Clubhouse. All right, that's all I have.
All right. I only have 2 items myself. First, I want to congratulate the Arvada Chamber of Commerce for an incredibly successful chamber dinner on Friday night. It was a great event, as it always is, and we partied like it was 1999 in celebration of their 99th anniversary. And then I also want to commend our city's severe snow response team. We had a pretty big blizzard hit us this past weekend. We were all there, we all know, and we were prepared, and we got those roads clear. And so I just want to thank everybody who responded to that incident, either plowing the roads or getting information out to constituents. We had a lot of stuck cars, so thank you everybody who went out and helped people get unstuck. So with that, Ms. Gillis, do you have anything more for the order?
I do. First, I want to say thank you to Councilmember Ambrose and Councilmember Pfeiffer for speaking about the resident comments, community comments, because as I was preparing for these concluding comments, I had very much the same things to say. There's a lot of information out there that we need to share about what is being done and what it will take to get there. I so appreciate the passion that came. A lot of our faith-based community came in tonight, and it's great to hear, great to see, and there will be trade-offs to get to where we're going to get to, wherever that is, whether it's a full navigation center. Also just want to emphasize, we do spend a lot of time with our regional partners, and like you pointed out, we were at the opening of the Recovery Works building, but we are meeting, I would say, at least 2 or 3 times a month, trying to get some traction on this. So I look forward to Friday. We need to have that direction. We need to have that policy direction from council, whatever that is from Friday. So I'm looking forward to it, and thank you for your clarification comments.
Ms. Morris?
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
All right, it is 9:45. Everybody go home. We're adjourned.